Happy Saturday from Dom's Corner. Thank you for joining. I appreciate that very much. I'm, of course, your host, Dom Martino. If you like the content here, please hit that like button below. Subscribe to the channel. Leave some feedback in the comment section. Share this with your friends. Do all that. Of course, today here I have Adam Leach with me. We are going to review Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This is something that we both revisited recently. Obviously we've been going through all the Star Wars films weekly. Actually, I think last week we did Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, or at least they both aired last week. So
yeah, we crammed them in.
Definitely. Adam, how you doing today? How you feeling?
Not too bad. I'm feeling all right. How about yourself?
Doing okay. Did you see that Mandalorian trailer? I don't want to go into a big analysis of it since this is the Revenge of the Sith episode, but since it's Star Wars, let's talk about that real quick because I haven't had a chance to.
I did. I watched it. Pretty much as soon as it aired. I haven't watched it a second time yet, but
oh, I've watched it.
Looks good.
Multiple times. It looks quite amazing. I'm not going to lie to you. So, the only other thing I'm going to say about the Mandalorian trailer, outside of the fact that it looks great, and obviously we're both excited it's coming right around the corner on October 30th, is that basically there's been these reports coming out. Adam, I don't know if you've even heard about this, that Pedro Pascal walked off the set midway through shooting the season, and I'm here to say I have it on good authority that is actually their bullshit reports. I with the information I have, I know I'm like nobody when it comes to that industry, and I'm not really a guy who like breaks scoops or anything like that, but trust me when I say that those reports, I have it on good authority that those are bullshit. So anybody that's worried that he's not going to be in the entire season, don't worry about it. I'll say that at least. There might be like a 0.01% chance that I'm wrong on this, but I don't think he actually walked out. Anyway, so
now people are going to be really mad if you're wrong.
I know, right? Like I said, there's a 0.01% chance that he did walk out and that those reports are true, but I'm telling you, I have it on real good authority that the reports are bullshit, even though they're being reported. It's being reported by some pretty big sites. I don't buy it for a second, and I have some information that says otherwise. I'll get into that on Wednesday when I do my next show, but anyway, just wanted to let everybody know about that. So Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. We are finally through the prequels. We don't have to talk about them anymore after this. That's always a blessing. But on the same hand, this I mean, revisiting this movie, you know, I loved watching it again. What were your overall thoughts? I'll let you go ahead and start with this.
Hands down, or as I like to say, pants down. Pants down, best movie of the trilogy.
Yeah.
Of the prequel trilogy, easily, without question. There is zero debate about it in my mind. Episode 3 is the best of the prequels.
Clearly.
And just off the top of my head, why I think that. Not to say that Hayden Christensen did a great job, but he's more tolerable.
Yeah.
His acting is a little more tolerable. He's slightly less whiny.
Right.
He does have some more moments where he has a little more emotion. So even though obviously another actor probably would have been better, all in all, way more tolerable to watch his performance in Episode 3. And the next thing is pacing is worlds better. There are a couple places where the pacing is but that's just a prequel trilogy thing. But all in all, Episode 3, the pacing is like, it blows the other two out of the water. It's actually a pretty fun watch. There are obviously plenty of things to say about it that are wrong, but all in all, fun watch, blows the other two out of the water.
Yeah. Hate to correct you. I think you said Episode 2 on accident.
Did I?
Yeah, it's all right.
I take that back because that one's not very good.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Happens. No, you're right. Episode 2 is not that great. I liked it much better the second time around watching it. But anyway, so Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. My thoughts on it, like I said, I loved revisiting it. personally, it's it's definitely my favorite of the prequels. I think it just goes without saying, like, even people that are like diehard fans of the prequels, I think really enjoy episode 3. I think it's just clearly the best one of the prequels. Anybody would probably tell you the same thing. So for me, yeah, I think it's I don't know that I actually, because you said there were pacing issues in a couple spots. I don't know if I felt the same way personally about that. There are definitely a couple of cheese ball moments for me though in the movie, but that's probably like my only like real issue with the movie is just the couple of like cheesy moments that don't feel like they belong there. I definitely felt like George hit his stride with the prequels on this one. Like I feel like it's not the best we've gotten from George Lucas directing, like of all ever, but like it is the best of the prequels, and he was finally, to me, starting to get some of that back with this movie. Some of the magic that he used to have came back in this film. So definitely not like the best of George Lucas, but still he was getting some of it back, and I'll just go right into the beginning here. Obviously the crawl. We always got to mention the crawl because it gives you goosebumps. Hopefully, but right from the get go, it's like you see the ships coming down, and they're flying in sync. And this is almost like George Lucas is like letting us know that I'm much more in tune this time around. Like this movie's gonna be much better than what I'd given you, the first couple times. Whether he'd admit that in real life or not, that he messed up, I don't know. But definitely, like, it's almost like he's subliminally telling us right here from the get go, like, you deserve better. I'm going to give you better. And one of the things I noticed about George Lucas, and you can tell me if you agree with this or not, is that it seems like when he's working with simplicity, it just works much better for him. Like, you think about the first Star Wars, right? Sure, as his imagination runs so wild that when he's making the original Star Wars, like, all this backstory, all the prequel stuff is already in his mind. So, like, all he has to do with the original Star Wars is, just tell the story, right? Tell the simple story, even though there's a lot of backstory in his head, and he alludes to a lot of the backstory. The story of the original Star Wars is simple, and kind of the same thing here. He's already kind of set up all the political mumbo jumbo and, everything in the first two movies. He doesn't have to worry about that, so the pressure's off. So now he just gets to tell the story that he's been wanting to tell, but it was almost like he had to get all the backstory out of the way first. But now this is the story he wanted to tell, which is the creation of Darth Vader, the fall of Anakin Skywalker, and the rise of Vader. And with that simplicity, George just really hits a stride. It's the simplicity where I think he can really get a grasp on things and handle it. But anyway, so we're when it comes to the beginning of it, we see the ships coming in. They're flying in sync. I think it's cool. John Williams' score is just the score throughout this entire film, by the way, from John Williams, it might be his best that he's ever done, like in his entire career.
It's a great score.
In his entire career, I think, like, he's definitely made more iconic scores, but I think just in terms of like what's the word, like the levity, of like the situations and like the way that he kind of, I don't know. It's just like there's something to the score that's far more powerful in this movie, and to Star Wars fans at least is still kind of iconic. Like if you hum the score for this movie, it's going to be iconic to like the hardcore Star Wars fans, for sure. Excuse me. So anyway, so they're flying in, and the whole point is simple, right? They're in there to get the Chancellor. The thing is, the other part of this movie is like, it doesn't matter that we're coming in on the middle of something like we had in the prior two. It's the fact. I mean, the whole idea that just the excitement that's going on in the first act. kind of distracts you from the fact that we're coming in the middle of something. It doesn't
It's
feel
a
as
distraction
abrupt.
tactic. That's
It
what it
is.
is.
It is. It's like all the excitement that's going on in the story is almost a distraction from what might be bad directing from George Lucas. But on the same hand, when I'm analyzing the shots and everything, like, I don't feel like it is terrible directing from George. The shots feel pretty good. This movie still has a lot of other CGI, in there, but like for the most part, like the way the banter that's coming off of Obi-Wan and Anakin is amazing. All the lightsaber moments are amazing. The whole elevator sequence is amazing. Like everything going on in this first sequence, leading up to when they get to Palpatine, it's incredible. It's some of the most exciting Star Wars that I've ever seen. Adam, how'd you feel about the first sequence? What you got?
So the opening crawl, like you talked about, each movie kind of has an issue with cramming a lot of information, where you watch the crawl and you're like, oh shoot, a whole lot of stuff happened that I have no clue about. Of course, there is some action between 2 and 3 that happened that you get explained to you in the crawl, but like you said, it starts out so strong that you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, like this is in your face. That being said, something along the lines of what I've previously said is I still stand my ground in the fact that I think this should have been more than a trilogy. It should have been extended so that we could get a lot more of that drama and have time to build more relationships, to fix the pacing and to explain some of the stuff that happened between the movies. And I know with this one, the Clone Wars animated series explains a lot of the clone stuff, but for the movie watchers, it would have been a little nice to have a little more Dooku to get us a little more attached to him, so that when he gets killed by Anakin, it's a bigger deal than it is, because he's still such a new character at that point that it's like when he dies, it's like there isn't too much of an attachment. So I wish there would have been a little bit about how they had captured Palpatine and stuff like that. But like you said, it starts out so strong. The opening sequence is just action in your face. It's really cool. I mean, obviously this movie still has a lot of CGI, but it's better in most places. It's better than it previously was, and the action is cool enough to where you just kind of look past it at this point.
Exactly.
But I was gonna say we got a little R2D2 action in this. R2 is my favorite character, so
Yeah.
I like when all those little droids are all over Obi-Wan's ship and they get on Anakin's and start picking at R2 and he zaps him. Like I think that's cool. R2 got to do a little action in this movie.
Yeah.
So I always really enjoy that.
Of course. And I want to bounce off a couple of your points too, because it's something that I probably don't even realize, because I'm so, I mean, we've talked about how into the Clone Wars I am, and the way that it all connects to this movie, which I won't give away for you because I know you haven't jumped in yet, but for me, it's interesting you bring that up, and I got to try to remember that too. I definitely understand your point about the Dooku thing. It's crazy because it's so in my head, because we did get the development in Clone Wars. So all that's like in my head already when I'm watching this movie, but it's not in your head. And I gotta try to realize that people who are watching this, not all of them have seen the Clone Wars series, and when this movie had come out, they hadn't. So for me, I didn't have an issue with it watching it because of Clone Wars, but now I'm thinking about it, it's like, oh my gosh, they really, in any of these prior to films, did they really dive into the development of Dooku to make the impact of what ends up happening with him later. For me, it was impactful because of what I'd seen in Clone Wars, but I got to try to detach a little bit here, because when this movie came out, nobody had that. And then the other, there was one other point I was going to make, something to bounce off of what you said. You were kind of talking about the R2 stuff, and I think that, to me, like, it's definitely awesome to see R2 again, or actually like R2 in action. This is what I was gonna say though. To me, Star Wars, and a lot of what a lot of the foundation that it was built off of basically is, you know, we're in these stressful situations, and this whole thing is so reminiscent of the originals, you know, where you could be in these stressful situations, and Obi-Wan and Anakin, they're having funny banter, and like we didn't really have that in the prior two. Like I think they were going for it from time to time, but like this is like the way Anakin and Obi-Wan speak to each other in this movie is, to me, it's perfection in terms of, in Star Wars terms, because it's that really fun, really quick banter that you have going on. Star Wars to me, like when you look at like the originals and even like the sequels, at least for the most part, you know, it's got a rhythm to it, you know, and I think that's the point I'm trying to make here is like with the R2 stuff, the Anakin stuff, it's all fun, you know, it's funny to watch at times, and it's action packed, and it's like they're in these really stressful situations, but it's just, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but to me it's like you have to follow these beats. It's got this rhythm to it. I don't know how to explain it any other way, but I don't know if you can make sense of that, but like to me it's just, it's got this rhythm, and it's the rhythm of the originals. It like not all the environments might, you know, or maybe not all the environments and the tone feel like Star Wars in every moment here, but like at least we got the rhythm going again, and I think that's what I was kind of trying to get at in the beginning of this, is George has a rhythm, and he found it here in this first sequence, I think. But anyway, going into Dooku, after the elevator sequence and stuff, I'm sorry, Grievous is after Dooku, right? I'm trying to remember here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because there was something I wanted to say about Grievous.
They killed Dooku, and then we run into Grievous.
You're right. Okay, so they go into the throne room. Now, something that's really funny that I want to point out, and I'm not going to dock the film for this necessarily, but I don't know if you noticed this, but this cracked me up. The jump that Dooku makes off the balcony is so unrealistic for a man of his age, and not only that, it's like,
I literally laughed when I saw it this time.
Like, even for a Jedi, like I thought it was a little bit much, and it just didn't fit the moment. It's small nitpick, but
I mean, Yoda
ridiculous.
is older than Sin, and Yoda's a freaking gymnast, so.
Oh, I laughed at that too, though. You know, so it's.
But
yeah.
I will say, having Dooku, knowing that is an old man, that he could easily break a hip just going down the stairs the wrong way, and he just did like the most legit flip off of like this 15-20 foot balcony. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I laughed pretty hard when I saw that flip. I want to make sure I pointed that out. And then I don't know how you feel about this, but like, well, this is like one of the lines that I felt like Hayden Christensen was like really slacking in this movie, like he was kind of falling into the old way, like, because I personally feel overall that Hayden Christensen is improved in this movie overall than he did in Attack of the Clones.
Noticeably, yes.
It was like he took a couple acting classes between.
That being said, he was so bad in Attack of the Clones that in improvement is not necessarily up to par, but it is better.
It's much better.
He's still, I don't know a lot about him in real life, so I wonder, like, does he kind of have a dry personality in real life? Because he is so dry as Anakin most of the time, just like almost emotionless.
If you listen to him talk, he is definitely a little more dry than most folks, but which is, I don't know, maybe it's because I've heard him talk in real life and stuff. Like, I find this performance in this movie to be passable. You know, it's passable. Like, it's not Attack of the Clones. It's this time around, it's passable. It's just not saying like a lot, but you know, it's
just like, I'll say this: anybody watching that has ever dreamt of moving to Hollywood and being a movie star, like, go back and watch the prequels for Star Wars and watch Hayden Christensen act and tell me that you don't have a chance to. Because if he can make it on freaking blockbuster movies like Star Wars, then anybody can make it, because he was not good in Attack of the Clones, and he was better in the third one, but still not fantastic. But
true,
I,
man.
I will say, you were talking about the banter between him and Obi-Wan. It was improved.
Yeah, highly.
Part of that was probably writing improved.
The script is better here.
marginally.
Yeah.
And I still say, I think we mentioned this off camera last time when we stopped. I had told you that I thought a lot of the scripting problems was the fact that George feels the need to have everybody call each other by their title all the time, like, yes, my fellow Padawan, or yes, master, of course, master. Like, it's master, fellow Padawan.
Right.
They're like all these long, unrealistic titles that people wouldn't be continuously using all the time in real life. And it makes the script really clunky and really unrealistic. That's still kind of present in this movie. But all in all, I think the banter is a little better. There are some funny moments, like when they're going in to get Palpatine, and they're flying into the hangar, and Obi-Wan says, like, in a really snarky way, he's like, well, have you noticed the shields are up? And I had a good laugh about that.
Yeah.
And then that's where we got our first I have a bad feeling about this, because it's present in every movie. Another thing I was going to say that I thought was funny a little before Dooku was when they got on the elevator and they killed the droids. The first thing that popped into my head was, they're in like a 7x7 box. How are they not hitting each other with these lightsabers?
Right.
I mean, their lightsabers are what, like 3.5 feet long or 4 feet long, and there's two of them.
It's so
and
true.
They're going like this, like, as you're watching the camera shots, if you really look, you're like, how are they not chopping each other to pieces? Like, they're in a small box and they're both like
Yeah, but I think that's kind of like the fun of it too, though. Like, especially when you're a kid and you're watching that, you know, like I remember, like, I always thought about that, you know what I mean? It's like, wow, Jedi are so cool. Well, that's the thing. When you're a kid, you're like, Jedi are so cool. They can swing those things so fast that they don't even hit each other. That's just how smooth and slick they are. But
part of the magic, I guess.
If we're gonna take these movies out of the fantasy realm, then you definitely gotta wonder how that works. But hey, whatever. I'm able to bend the rules a little bit for Star Wars, but
yeah.
On the same hand, you know, I mean, and you and I have also talked about, you know, some of the more grounded lightsaber moments in Star Wars. Like, I think the Maul, you know, fight in the prequels it's definitely more grounded than anything we see in here, in the sense that, like, it's all real. You know what I mean? There's no, you know, they're not really pulling any punches on that one. Like, it looks real. Right. Or the one in the throne room scene in The Last Jedi. As opposed to this, which is a little more crazy, but it's just so fun to watch. Like, you don't give a shit.
It's like,
you're getting so many lightsabers. Right.
I don't care that much. It was just one of those things that when I watched it, the first thing that popped into my head was, how did they not chop each other to pieces?
Yeah,
like, they're in the smallest box.
It's true.
Another thing about the elevator scene that I thought was funny, it's one of my favorite simple moments of the first half of this movie, is how offended Anakin gets when Obi-Wan starts blaming R2.
I wanted to mention that. Yeah, that is one of the best. Like, even one of the better performing moments from Hayden Christensen. Like, he actually made me laugh. You know what I mean?
He got so defensive about it.
He's trying. That was awesome. He's trying. Did I say anything? I didn't say anything.
I didn't say anything.
It is, man. That's what I was trying to get into, like, with the rhythm. You're kind of making my point for me. It's that rhythm. That's the rhythm that I was kind of wanting to get in. That I was talking about. It
was a more natural moment.
Yeah, well, like, that's what I meant to say though. Is like it's more reminiscent of the way like Luke and Han would talk to each other, right? As opposed to this very these dry tones all the time. That's George Lucas's rhythm. When he can get into that rhythm and make those that natural comedy, it really starts to work because that is what he's best at. And when he's avoiding the politics, he has when he's avoiding so much story that he's trying to cram in, it gives him more room, I feel, to work with his actors, to work on everything else that the film needs and the things that the film that allows the film to breathe a little bit more and be structured better when he's not worried about all this other shit.
Well, and like I said, like the whole master thing and all that clunky language, like that. It bogs down the script so much because it keeps it from sounding natural, because we don't talk like that in real life. You're not going to constantly call each other by these long titles. And like in the originals, like there wasn't that. These were normal people. There wasn't really a hierarchy. So they were having banter like normal people, just like in real life. You don't walk around calling everybody sir or lord, or like it's like you don't do that in real life. So in the originals, that's kind of how it was. They just talked to each other like people that were friends or people that had just met. So that elevator scene was just one example of them just talking to each other as if they were friends, and there isn't that master Padawan hierarchy. So when George can get that out of the way and just write for normal people and not shove that hierarchy in your face, like it feels so much more natural.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I after watching this and just seeing how well it shows, man, like George Lucas is a talented director when he's I think when he's practiced a couple times. Like people got to realize, like between like Return of the Jedi, like the guy didn't really direct anything up until like Phantom Menace. That was like the next thing he directed in terms of film. Like I almost wonder if he had gone out and done like a couple like independent films like before the Star Wars prequels, if that would have like helped him practice, you know what I mean, to get back into the groove of directing. I don't know why I said after Return of the Jedi. He didn't direct Return of the Jedi. After Star Wars, I'm sorry. So it's been a long ass time. He had like a long break from directing up until he did the prequels. So it really does make me wonder if he maybe had just gone out and done like a couple small indies like outside of Star Wars, if he would have maybe gotten that back, and I think that he did the trial run. He practiced a couple times and he figured out where a lot of his mistakes were, and he applied what he learned to this film. Like you could tell. But excuse me. That being said, moving into the Dooku thing, the point I was going to bring up was I think that this is where Hayden Christensen's acting is not good, is when he says, "My powers have doubled since the last time we met, Count." It's just like, okay.
I thought the same thing.
You're watching this, you're like, oh, Hayden, like I was liking you so far, please don't let me down again. And luckily that's like one of the few lines where he kind of transitions back to the old ways for me. But for the most part, this scene is actually it's amazing. I love the color grading that's actually used here in this scene, and I love the setting of it is amazing. And I like that this time. I like that Obi-Wan still gets taken out, so we're kind of seeing Anakin kind of go through the motions of the fight that they were going through in Attack of the Clones, and then he's kind of fighting Dooku this time. He's also learned from his mistakes, and I don't know why. I don't know, like I think that's the other thing that bothers me about the line, my powers have doubled since the last time we met. Like, I think that if he'd said something more along the lines of, I don't know, my masters trained me well or something like that. Something like simple like that might have like been a little more fitting to what's going on in the situation. So a line like that. I mean, they don't pay me to write these things, but Anakin. Anyway, so I don't know. I thought the lightsaber fight was much better here too, much more improved than we've seen it in Attack of the Clones. You could see that Anakin, the character, is taking what he's learned from Attack of the Clones. He learned from his mistake. He's applying his knowledge here. He bests Dooku. And here comes one of my favorite scenes involving Ian McDiarmid, because he's holding the red and the blue lightsaber. Do it. It is one of the most iconic lines. It's incredible, the delivery on that. And I don't know, like the way that George Lucas is shooting this scene, you could just feel the tension there, and it's impactful. Like, I was so happy that this scene still holds up. I remember being in the theater, being incredibly just shocked by this scene, and like, because like when you're a kid and you see like Anakin, I mean, he's going to turn to Darth Vader, but you don't really understand the repercussions that come with that, when you're watching this as a kid. Darth Vader's a bad guy, but we've never seen him like slaughter people in the originals the way that, he does in this film multiple times. So we don't really understand the repercussions. So he's going against the Jedi way, which has, been so not very well, but it's been mapped out for us, the Jedi way, in these prior two films. And so we know that this is against the Jedi way to cut off Dooku's head, and he does it anyway. It's impactful. I don't know, man. What do you think of all this? I mean, how are you feeling about this?
Prior to that, I was gonna say the fight
ahead.
scene, the CG like was pretty bad on a lot of parts.
You thought
like
so?
Like, just watch Dooku move. It almost makes me think that there wasn't even a real person doing it. It looks like a blur. It looks like they literally CG'd his character in there.
Yeah. Outside of the jump, I disagree.
That stuck out like a sore thumb to me. Like, it didn't even look real.
Interesting.
His moves, I mean, because there's no way that he's doing it full speed. It's not him. He's too old.
Yeah.
He's not capable of moving that quickly. As an old man, as fast, it's either dramatically slowed down, there's a stunt double, or it's CG'd in. And there was a lot of it that looked, I mean, because there are a lot of things in these movies that are CGI'd in, and you're like, why? That was one of the worst things that George did with these movies, was that he CG'd in a lot of super unnecessary things. And there are a lot of fight scenes in these trilogies where I'm constantly thinking to myself, I can't say for sure because I didn't make the movie, but I'm constantly thinking to myself, is that CGI? Why?
Oh, I agree with that, but in this scene, I gotta say, I wasn't feeling that. Like, and I was really paying attention because when I watched Attack of the Clones before that last review, like that, the CG that they used on Dooku there, like, stuck out to me for sure. So I was really paying attention to see if it improved any, and I was like, and to me, I didn't actually see a lot of problems. Like, it didn't stick out to me the way it did. I'm not saying you're wrong that they didn't use CG. Like you said, they obviously have to because he's not going to move that quick. But it didn't stick out to me the way it had in Attack of the Clones. Like, I think it looked better to me.
It stuck out enough to where I made a point to write it down.
Interesting.
I had to pause it and write it down.
I
don't know. There are, especially when he's turning, when he's doing really fast turn moves, it just looks like a blob, like a fake blob.
Huh. Interesting. I actually thought this fight looked much more solid. I don't know if it... I don't know. I don't know what it was, but I thought it looked a lot more solid. I actually didn't have a lot of problems in this fight. We'll get into it later, but I actually had more problems with the editing in the final fight than I did with this one.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
I was gonna say the only fights in these trilogies that I feel like came out fairly unscathed in the CGI department, where the final fight in this film and the fight with Darth Maul are the most natural feeling.
Interesting. Yeah, I had more problems with the final fight, not gonna lie, but we'll get into that when we get there. Anyway. So anyway, so he grabs Obi-Wan. One of the lines I actually really like, after he slaughters Dooku, he grabs Obi-Wan, and Palpatine's trying to get Anakin to, not take Obi-Wan with him. He's like, he's gonna die, here. One of the lines I love by Hayden Christensen is his fate will be the same as ours. I actually thought that was really solid. Good delivery there. But I'm sitting there, and this is just, it's an actual, like, I don't mind it, as it's not a problem with the movie I have. It's just more or less a character thing. Like, I'm sitting there, like, because Palpatine's like, it almost felt like Palpatine might have been showing a little bit more of his cards a little too early to Anakin, in my opinion. And I'm sitting there like, in a strange way, I'm rooting for Palpatine, because there's something about the turn to, Anakin, from Anakin to Darth Vader, that's amazing. So in some way, I'm sitting here rooting for Palpatine, but I'm sitting here like, him telling him to abandon Obi-Wan right there, I think Palpatine was showing his cards a little too early, on that one. Anyway, I just got that feeling about it. It was just a character
I was gonna say, at this point, does Grievous know that Palpatine is Sidious? Does he know?
I'm trying to think back into Clone Wars. I'm trying to reference that.
I was thinking about that in the second movie, with like the Trade Federation guys. So I looked it up, and everything that I saw online said no, they didn't know that Palpatine was Sidious. He was working, two different angles. So I started wondering in this one, does Grievous know that Palpatine is Sidious, and did they just set this up for this to happen? And the reason why I asked that was, did Palpatine specifically make a strong effort to try and keep Obi-Wan on the ship because he was going to attempt to turn Anakin there, and he didn't want Obi-Wan to be in the way? Or was it just one of those things? It was a perfect time, perfect place, and he was just like, "Oh, we'll just."
Well, no, I could tell.
I don't know.
Well, one thing I could say for a fact, and this is because of Clone Wars, is no, this was not the moment that Palpatine was going to turn Anakin. I could say that for a fact. Palpatine, I do think Palpatine tried a little bit earlier to turn Anakin, but it definitely wasn't here. This was just like the beginning of it. I know that for a fact, that this was not the moment that Palpatine was going to turn Anakin. And I also don't think that Grievous knew that I don't think Grievous ever figured out that Palpatine was Sidious, and I might be wrong about that. But if I remember correctly, that everything that Palpatine in the Clone Wars anyway, never dealt with Grievous directly, in my opinion. I don't think. Like, very rarely did he ever, because anything that he wanted to relay to Grievous, he would always go through Dooku, and then Dooku would, relay the message to Grievous in the Clone Wars. So I don't think that Palpatine's ever dealt with Grievous directly. Even in the form of Lord Sidious. I mean, he may have once or twice in the form of like a hologram, but I don't think he's ever actually like dealt with them directly. Otherwise, now that I'm thinking back, it's always been Palpatine would go through Dooku. Dooku would relay whatever information to Grievous, and then it would just kind of go down the line that way.
I didn't think so, because I think there is a part where he does pop up as a hologram, and he has his hood up and everything. So I thought, okay, well, if he's making the effort to put his hood up and everything, he probably doesn't know it's him. But just in that moment, it just made me think, like, was this all set up for him to try and like play his cards a little earlier to accelerate it, or was that just a coincidence? So,
this was also one of my problems with the final season of the Clone Wars, is while it connects really well into Revenge of the Sith and answers some of these little questions that we may have, it didn't really show Grievous like at all. I don't think he was in the final season at all, and I think he should have been. But speaking of Grievous, so they go and here's something that George should have tried to get a second take on and do again that I actually found to be a problem in the movie is in the whole Grievous sequence when they are when they're swinging their lightsabers around and taking out all these guys. Did you ever pay attention to Ian McDiarmid's face expressions in these little areas? Because they're hysterical.
He looked like he was rooting for him. He was like, oh.
Yeah. Like Lucas should have taken out he should have taken those moments out or reshot them or something. I don't know. I mean, he CGI's
I'm glad he left
else,
them in because I thought they were funny. Because he's literally in the background, like
he is,
like like he's watching football or something.
Yeah, and then
I think they're funny. So I'm
they
glad
are funny. You're not right.
They don't need to be in there, but
no.
I thought they're funny, so I don't care that much.
I don't know. I'm just thinking George CGI's everything else, so he might as well have CGI'd that, but whatever. But, you know, the other thing that's really, really funny is there's a part where Anakin has to get these guys, like, that are right around him, Palpatine makes this face like he's just so freaked out about a lightsaber. And it's like, about a lightsaber being near him, and it's like, you know what it's like to have a lightsaber around you. But that might have also been him playing the part, so I'm a little more okay with that one, you know? So I get that a little bit, but... anyway, so yeah, Grievous in this movie... Grievous as a concept is awesome. I find the voice and everything to be cheesy and, you know, like...
I think he's fine. I think he's a cool character. My problem is if he's going to be here, give him more substance. Like we need to meet him. Like I said, in the crawl, they've already set up that Grievous is doing something. And you're like, I don't even know who that is when you watch it for the first time, because you don't know who that is. And so it's just kind of like he just shows up and we have a couple moments with him and then he's gone. And it's that same thing I was talking about with Dooku. Like, give a character a little more time to flourish so you have a little more attachment to him. And like you said, Grievous as a character is a cool concept.
He is.
And I don't have a huge problem with how he was portrayed as a character. I just wish that he had more substance, because I didn't have an attachment to him. He didn't feel that important. There just wasn't a lot of background. There wasn't a ton of screen time. So I was just kind of indifferent, I guess.
I just find his dialogue to be extra cheesy for some reason in these movies. Like, and even in the Clone Wars, and that's another thing. Again, it's in my mind. I've seen Clone Wars, so I know, like, the development of Grievous, of course, but again, I gotta try to detach because, you know, you shouldn't need that to enjoy the character in this movie. But even in the Clone Wars series, like, for some reason they give his dialogue is just extra cheesy to me. So I'm not really, but I like the concept of the character again, and I think that, I don't know, it's one of those things where, I don't know.
They could have taken him out of the movie and it would have been fine.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to get at. Is if he didn't need to be in this movie. If you're a fan of the Clone Wars, you're obviously going to be happy that he's here in this movie. But if you're not, then you're really going to be like, it feels like an extra obstacle course, I think is the point I was trying to make.
They could have replaced him with like a General Hux sort of character, and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Like, of course, we have that fight scene later with him and Obi-Wan, which is kind of cool. And you're not going to have that with like a General Hux sort of character necessarily.
Yeah, that's true.
But all in all, with what they did with the character, for everything it was, they could have taken him out and replaced him with a simpler human character.
That's true.
And we wouldn't have known any better. It wouldn't have been that big of a loss because they didn't set him up well enough.
Yeah, like even yeah. Like, but then again, I feel like I really do need that Obi-Wan and Grievous fight later on, because that shit that he's doing with the lightsabers, we've never seen that before. That was cool. Like, it really was cool. But you know, yeah, just to me, the biggest problem, I think, and you could have taken him at least out of this scene. But for me, the biggest problem with Grievous is really the portrayal. Like, I think even in like the Battlefront 2 video game, if you're playing as Grievous, you have this the new Battlefront 2, not the original. There's this feature where you can, like, you know, have him crawl along like the ground, and then like he pops up with his sabers, and I think he says something stupid like peekaboo or something like that, and it's just like that kind of shit's like, what are you doing? But so anywhere Grievous is, I always think the dialogue's cheesy, but I don't hate him as a concept. But then going into you know, obviously they take the ship out, and then they're flying half a ship home, and it just
I was gonna say he blew out the windshield of that ship, and they're in the middle of space. And the first place my mind went was, is that even remotely scientifically accurate? Like, if the entire front window of the ship blows out, you know, they say space is a vacuum, so it would immediately suck the oxygen out of the ship. That's a really big window. So because it's a vacuum, the oxygen will rush to fill that void, which means they're going to get sucked out along with it, and at some point the oxygen will get sucked out of their bodies. So it's like, yeah, that's kind of unrealistic in itself. But
yeah, I gotta be honest, I don't give a shit about scientific accuracy when it comes to Star Wars. Like,
there's plenty of stuff to nitpick about science if we wanted to go down that route.
If we're gonna go down that road with even the best Star Wars movies, we're just not gonna you'd be nitpicking way too much. I think it's funny. Like, there's things that are definitely funny about it, like the windshield thing or flying half a ship home. But
they're like sideways holding on.
Yeah,
they're in the middle of space. A whole windshield is gone, and they're just like holding on completely horizontal. I think.
That is hilarious.
I will say, one of the more genuine lines from Anakin that I liked during this scene was when Obi-Wan asks him if he can fly that ship, and he says, I'd say under the circumstances, the ability to fly this thing is irrelevant. And I thought that was just a funny line. I was like, okay, that's a good natural moment. Chalk another one up for Lucas for actually writing a line that's kind of funny. That's fairly normal.
Yeah, this is so much closer to the. I think I was telling you about this too. It might have been in the Attack of the Clones review. I love Matt Lanta's interpretation of the character in the Clone Wars. Like, I think that he does a much better job of Anakin than Hayden Christensen. The script at least is so much closer to the Matt Lanta interpretation. You know, like the Matt Lanta interpretation is very, very funny. You know, like it's not funny all the time, but he has the nice natural moments, and they're so perfectly paced in the Clone Wars series. I so enjoy the comedy that they gave Hayden Christensen, at least in the beginning of the film, to really feel like the Anakin that I personally like, you know, and this is much closer to that in the beginning. I don't know what it is when they land that ship too. I even like there's a couple great lines here. The Obi-Wan's another happy landing. Like, I thought that was pretty cool, and then it just fit the moment so well. And then and I think in my head it's become an iconic Star Wars line too. And then the other thing was maybe you remember the line better than I do, because I know you take notes. The one where he's talking about how many times did Anakin save his skin or something like that? Do you remember this line?
I don't remember the line, but it was 10 times, and then Obi-Wan says 9 because that one doesn't count.
Like, I love that, because and that's another thing that's consistent with Clone Wars. You know, that's the other thing. Like, I know it's shown in the movie, but like, we don't really, like, the crawl doesn't even explain like where we are with these Clone Wars, because when you end episode 2, it's like the begun the Clone Wars have. It's like, okay, so how's that Clone War going? Like nothing in this movie
It just
explains
like
how it's
ends
going.
in this movie.
Right. Exactly. Like
They're
nothing
like,
in the
oh,
movie.
this is big. The Clone Wars are here, and then the next movie comes. Yeah, Clone Wars are ending.
So again, if you didn't watch the Clone Wars series, you have no idea what we're doing in terms of the
And
where we're
that's
at in the
and
Clone
that's
Wars.
the issue where
Yeah.
I know we had this conversation when we used to work together with the Clone Wars. What I was saying is that a lot of people haven't watched the Clone
They
Wars.
have not.
I'm
Exactly.
I'm one of those people. I've seen part of it, but I haven't seen all of it, and I do want to watch it. Is
Yeah.
I'm just a procrastinator. But
Yeah.
anyway, to most people, especially most casual Star Wars fans, the movies are it. This
You're
is the
right. Yeah.
story.
Oh, I agree with
That's
you
like
100%.
that's
100%.
like making an animated Fast and Furious series and
Yeah.
being like, oh, by the way, this is important to the series. And people who watch Fast and Furious are going to be like, I'm not watching that. Like, no, the movies are it. So even though as a hardcore Star Wars fan, you can watch them and you start to intertwine them, to most people, they're kind of separate things. A lot of people don't watch the animated stuff. And the thing is, when they made them with the intention for these to be the movies. I don't know that they had ever fully intended on being like, okay, we're going to make this trilogy and then we're going to fill it in with an animated series. That was probably an after fact, like, hey, let's fill in some of these holes. So it kind of feels like damage control. Like they were like, okay, we missed a lot of stuff, so let's make a series, an animated series, and fill in some of these holes. So that's just the issue I have specifically with this prequel trilogy, is that when they first released them, these should have been able to stand alone and explain themselves by themselves. There shouldn't be any damage control of going back and filling in holes. That shouldn't be necessary. If you want to make more prequels, oh, okay, but I've seen it. I mean, I haven't actually seen it, but I've seen the cover. I recognize it. Right. I just think I just think in general, you should never make a series where you are able to make a separate TV show to fill in holes of missing information. Like you should never make a series of movies where you even can make a TV show out of the missing information, because that's essentially what the Clone Wars TV show does. Is it gives you a crap ton of information that wasn't included in the movies. Now it's different. Like, I'll run with the Fast and Furious example again since I brought it up. In like Fast and Furious, for instance, you can have character spin-offs. You can have different movies with different characters. You can explain different backstories. You can branch out and do that. And Star Wars can do that. You can release a standalone Obi-Wan series. You can release a Darth Maul series, a Mandalorian series. You can do that, and that's perfectly fine. Or explain a backstory further. But like when you release a trilogy and there is this much room between movies, and you're actually able to release a series to go, yeah, let's make a movie about the information that we forgot to put in our trilogy. Or let's make a TV show about all of this information, especially if you can make a whole TV show about it. That's a lot of missing information. So I just think when they wrote it the first time, they should have been better about either extending it and making it longer, or making the story shorter so it doesn't feel like there's stuff missing between movies. Because you shouldn't have to be able to be like, well, that makes more sense if you watch the Clone Wars series. You shouldn't have to even say that. I blame George Lucas still. Blame him for everything. Right. And I'm fine with that. I'm just saying that the writing of the trilogy shouldn't have allowed for that to even be possible. It shouldn't have. There shouldn't have been. Right. There either shouldn't have been holes in the story that big in the first place to even make that a possibility, or they could have left the holes with the intention of going back and filling them with other things that were going to be a part of the actual movie canon. But anyway, I was going to say, is your mic plugged in? It sounds like you're on computer audio. I was gonna say you lost low. No. Yeah, I think your computer microphone is running right now.
I don't know what's going on.
Computer mic. There you go.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Sorry about that. And the only other thing I'm going to say in George's defense is he did try taking to Star Wars to TV multiple times after the original trilogy. It's just that TV wasn't the way it was today. So like there was nobody that would greenlight it. So I'm
glad that he didn't though, because the quality wouldn't have been nearly as good as it could be now.
Oh, true that.
So
yeah.
I'm glad that didn't get greenlit, because then we would likely be stuck with a whole bunch of old TV shows that aged poorly, just like the prequels.
Well, they did shoot a pilot though. This was after the prequel trilogy, so the quality was better at least. But they did shoot a pilot for another show. Did you see that test footage that got leaked?
I don't think so.
It looks pretty awesome. Like, it looked like it would have been actually a pretty cool series, but there was some test footage that got leaked, and when you watch it, it's actually pretty cool. But moving on to Revenge of the Sith, everybody, now that my microphone's back, and you can still hear me and everything's good, right? With the mic?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so moving on into Revenge of the Sith. We went off on a tangent, which is fine. So where were we? So Anakin is home now, and they do that really funny "saved your skin" line, and then he goes over to Padme, and these are really the moments I dread in this movie, because while the performances are better from each actor individually, the chemistry is still just not present between Anakin and Padme, which is a real problem.
Specifically this meeting.
Yeah.
The first meeting, for some reason, even though now they're married and it shouldn't feel this way, it still felt a little weird and creepy. Like he was really clingy and she was like, no, and he was like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, you're married. It shouldn't feel like that. Why does it feel like this still?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's really off. Like, she tells him she's pregnant, and I understand what they were going for, but the smile he gets on his face is like this really creepy smile. It's not.
He looks like he's worried at first.
Yeah,
he looks like he's worried, and then he gets this like.
It doesn't make any sense, man. Like,
I would say the second interaction they had shortly after this was much better.
I disagree.
I thought
it was worse.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it felt a little more natural to me. I specifically wrote down the first interaction was really creepy. The second interaction feels a little better.
Well, actually, you know what it is? It's not so much the chemistry in the second interaction. It's the fact that, I don't know if you noticed this, the second interaction they have, which, first of all, I don't think the dialogue's very good in the second interaction. The love has blinded you or something like that. I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. But the other part of it is, did Natalie Portman look like she was CGI'd into this scene? Did you notice something weird about her appearance in this? Like, it looks like they took another girl and they plastered Natalie Portman's face onto it with computer animation.
It was like augmented reality or artificial reality.
Yeah, go back and watch the sequence when we're done. Like, just put on that scene real quick. I'm telling you, it's weird. There's something funny going on with Natalie Portman in the scene. It doesn't look like
I don't know. I'll have to go back and look. I was gonna say it felt a little better to me than the first one, though, at least interaction wise, because this time at least they're both being fairly loving and fairly playful back and forth. Whereas in the past, it's been just like Anakin is so heavy-handed and Padme is just like. So at least in this scene, she's dishing it out too. So it is a back and forth, which is why I said it feels much better, because she's not like rejecting him and pushing him away. She's being playful with him too, when she says like, so love has
Yeah,
blinded you.
yeah,
She's just being snarky. She's just being playful. So
yeah.
I mean, all in all, of course, their interactions could always improve, but compared to the first meeting, I thought it was better.
Yeah, I'll say that. Okay, like the tone of the interaction's definitely better. The tone of it, I just don't think the dialogue is there, and for some reason, Natalie Portman looks like a bad deep fake. Like I don't know what's going on with her in that scene, but it's really just the dialogue I have a problem with. Not so much. I think the tone is much better in the interaction, so I'll give you that part. But I do want to go back just a minute because we see I don't remember the lines exactly, so I'm going to be paraphrasing here, but we see Mace Windu interact with Palpatine. Listen, I don't know where Samuel L. Jackson ends and Mace Windu begins anymore, because like it's like some part of me was just thinking that Samuel L. Jackson was pissed off right here to just be in this movie. Like he's so tired of doing his character because he just seems really pissed off, like automatically. It's either that or Mace Windu just really does not like Palpatine whatsoever, because he's talking to him and he's like, what Palpatine said, I think he was talking about the Sith Lord, right, or something, and the Mace Windu's like, well, we'll be sure to make sure that we find out who it is. Like, he just seems so pissed off, and I don't know why.
I will say there were multiple, actually, pretty much every scene that Mace Windu pops up, there is always a moment where I think, this just feels weird. It doesn't feel natural.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the dialogue or if it was Samuel L. Jackson's acting in this specific movie,
Yeah.
but it just, none of his parts really felt that natural or convincing to me.
You know,
and I freaking love Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
But I wasn't feeling it this time, apparently.
I hate to
I don't
say
remember
it.
thinking that the first time, but
Exactly.
I did this time.
Exactly, and I hate to say it because, again, I love Samuel L. Jackson too. I think he's a tremendous performer, and you know he probably really did his best, but it's like he does not work in Star Wars. After watching these two, or these three, like my impression of him in Star Wars has changed dramatically. You know, it's insane because, yeah, he just feels so off in these movies. But this scene in particular, he is pissed. I don't know if George Lucas like just got done telling him that he was gonna die in this movie, like right before they went to shoot this scene, or what. Because Sam Jackson does not look happy to be in this movie. I'm telling you right now, like, or if he was just fed up with like the lines he was given. I don't know, but what's funny about that is you kind of do need Mace Windu in this movie. He becomes a very integral part of this whole thing. So, hey, I'll take it. And the other thing is, like, another thing, I hate to keep bringing it up, but like Mace Windu in the Clone Wars is actually, he fits much better. That's another thing I'll say. So it's not the character I hate, like, so much, I guess. I don't know. I do hate the character in these movies, but I love him in Clone Wars. It's a weird thing, weird contrast, and I don't think.
Moral of the story: everybody throw out your prequel trilogy and just watch the Clone Wars instead.
It seems
Pretend
like
it's real life,
dude. It's like, but I'm not kidding you when I say it's like it is the better thing. You know, to me, it is the superior thing.
If only it was live action.
Yeah.
Then it would put the icing on the cake.
I agree, man. I agree. I don't mind the animation. I don't know. Anyway.
I mean, I don't mind animation either. I like animated stuff, but there is something special when you can pull off a live action series like that.
I agree.
It's special. I mean, because Star Wars is cool when it's live action because you got all those stunts and explosions and
I agree.
Stuff. It's just, it's wild.
Oh, 100%. Like, I see where you're coming from. I definitely do. And if that series was live action, oh, trust me. And you know, it's there's that thing with there's a lot of viewers that just don't do animation. So it's like, and I think that that's like a stigma that people have about the Clone Wars. And if that show was live action, believe me when I say, if it was live action with the same everything else that's in there, it would be the Star Wars that people would be talking about now. You know what I mean?
Or I probably would have watched it by now, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I like animated series. I don't have a problem with animated stuff. Yeah. But for something as important to me as Star Wars or something like that, if an animated series comes out, I'm gonna watch it, but it like kind of gets put on the back burner because the live action stuff is just, you know, the fantasy element of it looking like real life, but it's just this big magical extreme fantasy, like, so you can do anything in an animation. So an animation is less, can be just as entertaining but less special because it's animated. It doesn't feel like real life, so there isn't as much of an attachment because the characters aren't real. You know, we relate to humans because we are humans. We like it when stuff feels real. So I think that's why there's a stigma around animation, is that there isn't as much of an attachment because they aren't real people. That being said, I still enjoy plenty of animated stuff, but yeah, if it were live action, I probably would have watched it by now.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's like, I mean, I like Star Wars more as a franchise, but like I'll watch Game of Thrones over Star Wars any day. You know, it's just.
Would you watch an animated Game of Thrones?
Yeah, if it expands on the story, yeah, hell yeah, I would. By the way,
sidebar, I've still not watched Game of Thrones. I've watched 2 episodes. I watched 2 episodes and they killed a dog, and I said, I've seen enough.
You have not seen enough. You got to keep going. That show's amazing. The other, by the way, another sidebar: the animated Jurassic World came out today. The Jurassic World series is on Netflix today, so maybe I should watch that because I'm really not happy with the way Jurassic World is going. So, anyway,
I probably won't watch that, but interesting.
Oh boy, we're still at like the beginning of this movie, so we got to move into it. So where were we? Second interaction, we've already covered that. We know how we feel about that. So right after that, I think we're getting into the Jedi Council stuff, right? So it's Obi-Wan and the Council mainly. It seems like, and I really like this stuff because you feel like even in the meeting without Obi-Wan having to say it right at the get-go, it's the expressions on the face, the interactions of all the face expressions and everything, really tells you that Obi-Wan does not want Anakin to, be put to this task to spy on Palpatine. It's like Obi-Wan was ahead, man. Like he sensed that this would be a bad idea before it even was. And then I like that, I like the dialogue. It's pretty intense because it's the first time we're seeing this relationship crumble between Anakin and Obi-Wan in the hallway, where, Obi-Wan is telling Anakin, it wasn't me that came up with this idea, but Anakin's just not having it. He does not want to take on this mission. And then the next thing I really like is the interaction with Yoda and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan saying that he doesn't think, or no. I think Mace Windu is the first one to actually doubt, this is where Mace Windu really starts to become integral to the story, because I think Mace Windu is the first one to doubt Anakin's, ability to do this in front of Obi-Wan. But then Obi-Wan's kind of like, well, is he not the chosen one? And according to the prophecy. And then Yoda, I think he says, which Yoda might have been right here. And now that we have more information, Yoda might have been right about this when he said a prophecy misread may have been, so that actually might be true now that the sequels have come out, but that's a debate for way down the line. But anyway, what do you think of all this stuff?
A little before the council thing, is when Anakin talks to Yoda about
the visions. I forgot about the visions.
Having visions.
Yeah.
And Yoda tells him, train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. And I was thinking to myself, that's really crappy, honestly. Like, here, this has nothing to do with the movie in itself. This is just me thinking about what it means to be a Jedi.
Yeah.
Being a Jedi, that makes being a Jedi sound like a terrible thing. Like, train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. So you're telling this person, let go of everything you're afraid of losing.
Yeah.
Let go of all the people that you love, all the things that you love. So what it implies is, to be a Jedi, you can't love people and you can't love anything. You basically, to be a Jedi, you have to be completely detached from everything and everyone around you. You have to constantly be prepared to lose everything because you can't live in fear. And that sounds like a really sad existence, honestly. Like,
It is.
to say, like, in like, instead of helping a person like get over uh fear of losing someone or helping somebody get over a mourning process, you're telling the person, well, don't love people in the first place, and you wouldn't have that problem. If you just wouldn't love anything about life, you wouldn't be upset about anything. Like, that's very depressing.
Yeah, it is. And it's but I think we kind of covered this too in the Attack of the Clones thing. Like, I'm okay with it in the sense that, like, it makes sense for the ideas that are brought up in the Skywalker saga down the line. So it makes sense to the story in that aspect that you have to abandon all attachment. But, like, yeah, that was the whole idea. Like, Anakin and Padme getting involved was, as an idea, is kind of incredible storytelling, because it was one of Anakin's biggest mistakes. You know what I mean? And this is where, like the romance in Star Wars to me is very integral, is because it really it's at least in the prequels, it adds the stakes to it. You know what I mean? Like, we knew this was a mistake from the beginning. And yeah, you're right. Like, it sucks, but it's the path he chose. You know what I mean? And you know, even going back to Attack of the Clones, and this is where I really give George Lucas credit as a storyteller. You know, Shmi gave him a choice. It was, you know, it was this or slavery. You know what I mean? Or no, he freed him. He freed Anakin. Anakin didn't have to be a slave. So forgive me on that. Let's go back on that. But Shmi even gave him a choice. You know, you could live a free life in Tatooine, and, you know, I'll raise you. And she still would have been a slave. Or you be a Jedi. That was Anakin's choice, right? I mean, and it's the path he chose, and unfortunately,
But he's a kid.
He chose the path.
You don't understand that. You don't understand that as a kid. Like I'm telling you as like a 10-year-old, like, you're going to do this, you're going to be a hero, you're going to have all these great abilities, but you're not going to be able to love anything or anyone. It's like, a kid doesn't understand that. And that's basically what the implication is of being a Jedi. What they're saying here, what they're implying in these movies, is that a Jedi is incapable of loving. And not that they're incapable, they're clearly capable,
No,
but they're not supposed to. They're not supposed to love, which brings to the question, you know, then are Jedis like supposed to be banned from reproducing? Are they not supposed to love at all? Is that like a law? Are they not supposed to reproduce?
Well, that's the idea I like, is that anybody can be a Jedi. That's why I like it.
Now, here's the thing. Now, you can make it that and say, okay, they're not supposed to reproduce. Jedi can't reproduce. So now you get rid of the idea that Jedi are born by Jedi mating with each other, or a Jedi mating with a normal person. So now you have this mystery, which is great in its own way. This mystery of anybody could be a Force user, that, you know, it could happen. It could be a little kid on Tatooine like Anakin. We don't know who his dad was, you know, so it could be anyone. That being said, now there's kind of a plot hole, because now you're like, there is this mission to completely get rid of the Jedi. But if Jedi aren't born from other Jedi and they can pop up anywhere, you can never get rid of the Jedi.
No, that I disagree with that 100%. Actually, you can get rid of the Jedi. It's not the Jedi. The Jedi is a religion that Force users choose to follow. You could be a Force user, but that doesn't make you automatically a Jedi. What you're getting rid of is the Jedi way. That's what's trying to be obliterated. That's what Palpatine's trying to obliterate.
Okay.
It's not he's not trying to get rid of Force users. He understands that the Force is always it moves through all of us, right? And some more than others. And he knew this. That's why Palpatine, even way before his death, he had a contingency plan. This is set up in a lot of the canon novels. This is, Palpatine, whether he was still alive or not, or his spirit moved elsewhere, that maybe wasn't so much set up in canon novels, but it was always set up in the canon that he always had a contingency plan, even after death, because he knows that the Force will never stop moving. And he does, and that's why I don't want to start a sequels discussion, but that's why in the sequels it was important to get rid of Luke Skywalker, because he was the last following the Jedi way. He redefined it, but he was the last of the Jedi religion at the time. And they didn't want Rey to, he didn't want, that to be passed on to Rey. He wanted Rey to follow the Sith way. But that's my point, is like, Force users, yes, they're always going to be around, but just because you had the Force, I mean look at little broom boy at the end of Last Jedi, right? He has the Force. It could be anybody. You could do those little cool
little
things.
Broom boy.
Well, that's who he is. But it's but the Jedi way is a religion. It's a way to, of doing things, and that's what he's getting rid of. And not to mention, when you think about it, the Jedi, in as far as the way that they're kind of laid out in these prequels, the Jedi are like, they're like the police, you know what I mean? So Palpatine's just trying to break the law. That's all Palpatine wants to do. So he's just trying to get rid of the police. He doesn't want to get caught and arrested. That's what the Jedi are. They're police in these movies.
Palpatine's blaring NWA in his car and like F the police.
It's like he goes so far just to be able to break the law. But that's the thing. It's when you even look back into earlier canon, it's like the Sith had to. The other reason that's important to Palpatine, for the Sith way to be so predominant, is because the Sith had to hide in secret for so long in order to just move around. The rule of two. And so if he gets Anakin on board, then he can recruit other Sith, and it could be like, Palpatine is like, I mean, he tells the story of Darth Plagueis. Let's get into that too. This is the stuff we really need to unpack. Unless you had something else to say before this, because I really want to get into the Plagueis stuff. I think
that was a good little explanation you did there, because that was just an oversight on my part.
No, it's all good.
That was insightful.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that I don't want to blame George, but it is the way that he laid out these first two movies that makes it so confusing. And it's like, I'm telling you, unless you've read like a lot of the novelizations and things like that, you're not going to really grasp this stuff, the way that maybe you could, which is where I come in, I suppose. But on the same hand, but anyway, I do want to unpack this Plagueis stuff too, because this is really, really important. And it's a lot of the thing. It's something that George was definitely trying to do here, but a lot of people did not pick up on, is the idea that, so I don't know. He tells the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise. First of all, I'll ask you, what do you think of the scene, and how do you interpret the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
I like the scene.
It's amazing.
It's a good scene. I like the story. I like the manipulation tactics he's using. He's being very manipulative. He's pressing all of the right buttons, using like dark psychology to get in Anakin's head. And the story itself, I mean, now knowing what we know now with the sequels, I mean, it's kind of important, right? Yeah. But that's also why people wanted the sequels. They wanted Snoke to be Plagueis, and I was one of those people. I wanted Snoke to be Plagueis in the sequels.
Of course.
So it's like, and it all kind of bases around this story. And still, so I would still love, in a parallel universe somewhere, I would love there to be these new Star Wars movies where Plagueis is actually the main villain under the scenes. I think that would still be really cool. But that story that he tells in this, I think is very important to the sequels too, because it kind of shows, because Palpatine was that person trained by Plagueis, that Plagueis was his master. So he is implying that Plagueis taught all of these things to who he was training, but he's not giving away his position exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of implying that Palpatine either currently possesses this knowledge, or he knows enough to where he's in pursuit of this knowledge, which then, makes sense if you want to think about the sequels that way, about him basically just pursuing, it's him trying to live forever. I mean, he's this old, broken down, beaten man in the last movie. So it kind of all fills together. So I love this scene with this story. I think watching it back now is even more impactful.
Yeah. I have a couple theories actually, about what the scene means to the entirety of Star Wars, or the entirety of the Skywalker saga. And also I want to ask you your opinion on this part, because the theory behind, or not just my theory, but what a lot of people have said, is that one of the things that George was trying to get across in the scene is that he was really trying to, and I don't think he really ever executed it well, but I don't mind the ambiguity of it either, is that he was trying to imply that, when he says, he had the ability to create life, the implication is that, that Palpatine created Anakin, because Palpatine knows how to create life, he does. It's just a fact. He might not tell Anakin that, but Palpatine did create Anakin, and I'll have to dig up the comic where it's in. But remind me to send you a picture or something when this podcast is over, because you're gonna think it's really cool. To me, like, did you like ever watching this, like, in your entire life, like, catch the implication of that? That Palpatine created Anakin?
Well, no, never.
Yeah.
Ever. Not until you literally just said it.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand the implication of this scene until the new movies came out.
Right.
And it was then where I finally realized that Plagueis thing is important.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's important. I would have never understood why that was important as a child. I would have never gotten it. And now that we know more of his history, and Palpatine's history with Plagueis and his relation to that story. But watching it as a kid, I didn't know any of that. So
right.
It's much more impactful, much more important watching it now.
Right.
And it's impactful to the whole series, and especially to the new movies.
Yeah. And this is where my theory kind of comes in to play here. And this is something that I really conjured up until more recently, especially after watching Rise of Skywalker. This is something that this is how I feel anyway, is that, in my opinion, whether this is something that George was trying to imply, or Disney was trying to imply, or J.J. Abrams more specifically was trying to imply with his film, is that, in my opinion, in the current state of canon, is basically that I think Palpatine, in a way, and stick with me here, in a way, Palpatine is Plagueis in a weird way. Because when you think about it, if Palpatine, we're talking about how people transfer their life essence into one another, right? Like I feel like at the end of Rise of Skywalker, and obviously spoiler for the end of Rise of Skywalker if you haven't seen it, which we're going to talk about at some point anyway.
If you haven't seen it yet, you're a loser. We don't care about you.
That's not true.
Continue.
Thank you.
It is true. Don't listen to him.
But Jesus Christ.
I heard you got this motivational guy on your podcast calling people losers. That's a Star Wars. It just brings out the dark side, I guess.
He's motivational. Yeah, he's motivating you to get better. Don't be a loser. It's just that easy. But so anyway, so my theory is like, because we're talking about like I feel like when Kylo saves Rey at the end of Rise of Skywalker, a little bit of Kylo, I feel like now lives inside Rey. And I feel like it works the same with Palpatine and Plagueis, right? That's just how I feel about it. So I feel like in some manner, Palpatine kind of is Plagueis, you know, and I feel like the spirit of Plagueis always has lived on through Palpatine. It's a whole discussion about, you know, how we transfer the life essence through the Force, but I really feel that way about it. Like, I feel like at some point, like, Palpatine probably was dying, and Plagueis, like, it's just a theory. It's not stated anywhere, but I feel like Plagueis, you know, saved Palpatine from death, and that's probably how Palpatine knew. But then I feel like, you know, Plagueis killed Palpatine, you know, and then maybe even took something in that sense too. That's just how, or I'm sorry, Palpatine killed Plagueis, right, and then took something from that too. So I always felt like a lot of like Plagueis' spirit just lived in Palpatine, right? Like, I think that's the only way Palpatine was able to rise to the power that he's able to rise to, is to be able to take some life essence from Plagueis, you know. And anyway, that's my theory on that, and that's how I interpret this scene for the most part, and also all the points that you'd made prior. So moving on from the scene, did you have anything else you wanted to say about Plagueis Palpatine?
I mean, no, not really. I mean, but that's like my favorite stuff to unpack.
Oh, me too.
This movie and this series, really, the entire Star Wars series. I just think, you know, I know we're not talking about the new ones right now, but just briefly, like, I understand a lot of people have beef with the new movies and stuff, but they gave us a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, a lot more to talk about. They explained a lot. Yeah. And if you don't think that there were important people to the Star Wars universe that purposefully wrote those movies, that they knew what they were doing probably far longer than we thought they did, what they were going to do with the story, then you're probably wrong, because they didn't just like write these overnight. They probably knew what direction they wanted the story to go for a while. So it's not like they just up and decided, like, this is the direction we're going with these, and then the next year they release the new trilogy. Like, that's how people act like it is. But, you know, all of the beef that I have with various Star Wars movies, I'll say this: I'm consistent in that I hardly ever, if at all, have beef with the actual story. Like with the prequels, I've got beef with stuff in the prequels. There's a lot of stuff wrong with the prequels, but I don't have beef with the story, because the story is written.
Yeah.
How it's portrayed can always be changed, but the story is written.
Of course.
Because
of course.
you have to treat movies like real life. You can't change them. You can't change events in real life. They play out how they play out. Somebody wrote these movies, somebody wrote these stories, and they did it purposefully how they envisioned it with their creative vision, and they spoke it into existence when they made the movies. And now that is how it is, just like real life. You can't change the past. Well, these movies pretend they're real life. So it's like, I never have beef with Star Wars movies because of the story, which is why I don't have beef with the new movies, because the story is the story. That was somebody's creative baby that they put a lot of work into. And I can't change the story. Right. It is how it is. I can't change what I don't like about my life. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So, and that's the issue I have with people disliking the new movies so much, is that their issue isn't how they made. They're not whining about the cinematography and the writing and the acting. They're not whining about that. They're whining about the actual story And
Exactly.
you can't just rewrite a story. Somebody already wrote it. That is how it is. You have
Yeah.
to accept it and move on. If you don't like how it was executed, that's one thing. That's your creative ability. But this
Right.
is somebody's story. Just like you can't walk up to somebody and like complain about their existence, like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have lived this way. I'm mad that your life story went this way. Like,
Mhm.
well, that's too bad, because this is my life and I just lived it and it's real and I can't take it away. That's how movies are. Once
Yeah.
they're written, you can't change them. That's
Mhm.
the story now. Deal with it.
Mhm.
Sunglasses.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna make my point here real quick with the sequels, then we're gonna move on to this, because they're and it really ties back into that Revenge of the Sith is still one of the most integral pieces of the entire story, and I don't think a lot of people think about that, and this is even diving into the Plague stuff and all that, because the thing is, here's the idea, and I'm going to say it out right now, and I'll bring it back up again when we talk about Rise of Skywalker. But I'm going to say this right now so people just get it and they can move on, because I always hear, what was the point of the sequels? And here's the point, and I'm going to lay it out for you right now. Palpatine seduced Anakin. He used the angle that Anakin would be able to create life, save the one he loved from dying. That was the angle that Palpatine used here. And this is why Revenge of the Sith is one of the more integral movies, and this is why Rise of Skywalker also has a amazing connection to that, because or all the sequels, because in Force Awakens, what did we see Kylo Ren say to the Vader helmet? I will finish what you started. He had the right, in his mind, he had the right intention, and he may have, because he did end up finishing what Vader started in Rise of Skywalker when Rey was dead. He saved the one he loved from dying. He finished Vader's work. Maybe it wasn't in the way that he thought, but he finished Vader's work. And that is, in my opinion, the point of the sequels. And that is how you finish a legacy. Is because Anakin came into the Vader thing with good intentions. He did. He did it for the right reasons. Did he redeem himself in 6? Yeah, but he caused a lot of destruction in order to do so, and he never really got to the end game. You know what I mean? Like, he never really figured it out. The end game. So it took 2 generations of Skywalker in order to do so, and I think that was the point of the sequels. Anyway, wanted to mention that, but we'll move on. So enough of the sequels.
That whole theory, when we talked about that, we had that conversation when we watched the newest one,
Mm-hmm.
and after you were talking to me about that, and we discussed it, like, that theory right there changed, and I already enjoyed the new movies.
Mm-hmm.
But that completely changed the light in which I looked at the new movies, because you're right. You're very right. It all ties together, and it's all really important. And it just kind of, I don't know, it made everything very cohesive, and made the new movies feel very purposeful. It gave them a real connection with the prequels. It gave them a real connection with the originals. And that is something that people don't understand. I don't think a lot of people are making that connection.
They're not.
But once you make that connection, it's kind of like, oh, like, they did write this very purposefully. They knew what they were doing, and they knew where they wanted to go with the story. But you have to read between the lines.
You do.
And that is the underlying beauty of the new movies, is there is some stuff that's just kind of like a little bit of reading between the lines. And you can't just look at it for face value.
Yeah, it's the ambiguity of it. And the other thing is, too, is George always said Star Wars worked like poetry. I mean, there is on the dark side of things at the beginning, it was we had a Palpatine destroying a Skywalker. But on the dark side of things, in Palpatine's mind, he's helping a Skywalker, right? But then on the other end of the spectrum, we have a Skywalker on the light side actually helping a Palpatine, you know, and it's just the spectrum, you know, it's how it works. But anyway, so anyway, moving on. Where were we? We had the Plagueis scene.
Jedi Council. Where we at?
We were at the Plagueis scene last. This is how we got started on all this.
I was gonna say real quick about the Jedi Council thing.
Yeah.
When they told Anakin that he could be a part of the council, but he wasn't gonna be a master.
Oh right. Oop, my camera fell.
I'm siding with Anakin here. He is rightfully pissed off.
Absolutely.
He is very rightfully pissed off, and they cannot be surprised that he got an attitude. They cannot be surprised that he turned against them, because they made the bed, and now they have to lay in it, because the Jedi Council did so much to enable Anakin to hate them. Yeah. Everything they did was against him. They treated him, look, he acted like a child. He acted like an immature child, but he acted like a child because he knew he was powerful. Mm-hmm. He knew he was more powerful than almost any of them, and they were not giving him that respect, and that was leading him to act out and act like a child, because he's in his mind, he's like, I'm more powerful than any of you. Why are you treating me like a child? And it made him throw a lot of hissy fits, which then made them to treat him more like a child. So it was like a vicious cycle. So it's like, they can't be surprised that he's mad at this, because how are you going to let him on the council and not make him a master when nobody is ever on the council without being a master? And you know he's the most powerful one in the room, arguably, or he's going to be the most powerful one in the room. And you're going to keep him from being a master. Like, you're literally you're soaking the fire in kerosene. Like, they have to know how mad this is making him. And they have to know that they're walking on eggshells with this kid. Mm-hmm. All of them are nervous about him. So that's the thing that makes me mad about them, is that they were enabling him the entire time. Like, they should have been treating him like an adult. They should have been treating him like the powerful person that he was. And it might have kept him from turning against them. Yeah. But they clearly weren't intelligent enough to see that angle.
And I hate to go back to the sequels, but this is something else that makes it, you know, that adds more of a point to the sequels, is the sequels actually call this shit out. You know what I mean? And it gives even Master Yoda a chance to say, you know, failure, the greatest teacher failure is, because he knows this. And it's a chance for Master Yoda to admit what the council had done wrong in the past. You know what I mean? And it's a chance for the Jedi to right those wrongs, or a Jedi to right those wrongs. You know what I'm saying? So that's another point to the sequels, even leading off of that. And I know that this isn't a sequel discussion, but there's just no avoiding it when you draw the lines from this movie, I feel. And
there are too many connections.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's another thing with the sequels is they call that out, you know, and so this is, it makes everything here feel just so warranted at this point upon a revisit, I guess is the overall point. Is like, a lot of this stuff, when you maybe watched it the first time before the sequels are out, you know, I might have felt very differently, but now that they're out, a lot of it just feels so warranted in the film. But let's move into, well, let's hop into, how does Anakin goes to meet Palpatine because he's spying on it. Well, let's get to Obi-Wan first, actually. Let's talk about Obi-Wan and Grievous. Well,
before that, right, Anakin tells Padme that he could save her.
No,
I wrote this part down.
It's later, I think. Right? Oh, no.
It's
right
before.
Right here, he tells her about the dreams, right? Or the visions.
No, I think he told her. I think he told her before. It's at this point he tells her that he's found a way to save her, and she was like, "You don't need to save me." Like, I'm gonna be fine.
Before
And
Obi-Wan?
anyway,
Before the Obi-Wan stuff?
yes, because my next point was stripy face guy looks terrifying.
Okay. All right.
and that was when we were gonna meet Grievous, which is a whole nother point. Seriously, that stripy face dude, whatever his name is, terrifying looking.
Oh, I like that
But,
interaction they have, though. I think it's actually pretty cool.
Anakin. So Anakin is telling Padme that he's found a way to save her. He promises that he won't let her die. And my issue with this scene was the very next scene when we go to Obi-Wan going to that planet to meet Grievous. There is a lot of gravity in this situation, because this is the first hint we get that Anakin has soaked in some ideas of the dark side. He's literally telling Padme, like, he's not directly telling her this, but we know that he's basically telling her, I have learned that the dark side has this ability to keep my loved ones from dying. And by telling her he's found a way to save her, he is essentially for the first time conveying that he is going to dabble in the dark side, that he is going to try and use dark side abilities to save his loved ones. And that is a very dark moment. It's the first moment where he is insinuating that he is starting to turn to the dark side, to embrace these dark ideals. And I had an issue with it because he says that he promises he won't let anything happen to her, and he says that, and then immediately what happens? We get a freaking screen wipe and we go to a different planet, and this light bouncy music starts playing. And I had an issue with that because I was like, really? This is a big moment. This is the first moment we get where Anakin is implying to the audience, I'm embracing dark ideals. This is happening. He's starting to turn. That scene, it should have been dark. The music should have had an ominous turn. There should have been more distance between the next scene. This is just technical nitpicks, I guess. But going into the next scene, you can't just immediately say, like, I promise I'll not let anything happen to you. Screen wipe, bouncy music. Like, no, like, that was a big moment. That was kind of a dark moment. It should have reflected that in the next scene, because that's the issue I have with these screen wipes, is it creates that weird pacing issue where from scene to scene it's such an abrupt transition that you go from feeling this darkness to all of a sudden, like, oh, everything's fine again. Like, and there's no time for your emotions to transition. So that was a technical issue I had with that scene that would have made it way more impactful.
Couldn't have said it better myself, and I'm glad that you went into that, because that was one of the edits that I wanted to bring it up. I wasn't going to go that deep into it, so I'm actually really glad that you did, because it really did bother me as well when I was watching it. And I mean, yeah, it's one of the poor edits in this movie, and I do feel like that scene should have been expanded. I had a question for you. This is a slight sidetrack here, because it goes back to the prior two movies, but because you kept mentioning about how they how you felt like George should have had more time to do what he was doing. What if they were like more the length of the, I know you said like you were talking about like 4 movies, but like imagine that each of them were like the length of like the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings extended cuts. You think that would have been even better? Because I actually think that would have been a better way to do this. Is like use all the time that you need to, then cut it down, to what you to like a fine passable theatrical film, and then put out the extended editions of these to where they we actually have the full. That might have been a better way to do all this, but it was just something that just popped in my brain because we were talking about poor editing.
You know what it feels like to me is it feels like this is me using my imagination in a fantasy world, how I imagine it went. I imagine George Lucas shoots these films, and I imagine each film is like 5 hours long.
It's possible.
And then he realizes on the editing table, okay, this is the story I wanted to tell, but we've got to cut it down to 2 hours, so let's start chopping. And it's like there is a complete story there, but he was like, okay, we can't sacrifice all of the story elements, so we're going to have to sacrifice the transitions.
Yeah.
So he just started chopping things up and moving so abruptly with the screen wipes. I know they don't help, but the screen wipe is really just a visualization of what it feels like to move to the next scene. It feels like, I feel this way, this is how this scene feels, and screw that, now we're here. And that's how it feels.
Yeah.
But so I imagine like he filmed all these movies and they were like 5 or 6 hours long, and then he was like, okay, we're gonna have to chop these up, and just starts throwing stuff away. But no, like if they were like 3.5 hour Lord of the Rings style movies, it would have. I still don't think that there is any way around squeezing an extra film in. I think there is so much information that I think they could have had 4 movies and they could have been 3 hours long, just to fit in not only the extra stories, the extra pieces of the story that were missed, that were touched in like the Clone Wars series, but also to give ample transitions and ample ability to introduce characters and introduce chemistry between characters. It would have fixed a lot of the pacing issues. It would have fixed a lot of the relationship issues and chemistry issues with Padme and Anakin, because they would have had more time to build chemistry. It would have fixed the transition issues, like with this scene where this is a really underlying important turning point in Anakin's story, and we've completely skipped out on a good emotional transition, and it just felt like there was this big nice artistic transition, and we don't have enough time, so let's just chop that up and cram them together, and now there's no artistry. Now we're just screen wiping to the next feeling.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of wild because like even Attack of the Clones, it's still the second longest Star Wars movie, in the entire thing, and it's like it still wasn't enough time. By the way, trivia, you know what the longest Star Wars movie in the saga is?
It's got to be one of the new ones, right?
Yeah, you're warm.
It's got to be the. I'm trying to think which was which. It has to be the last one, right? The last one was pretty long. I felt like it was. No. Or was it the... It was number 8.
Yeah, Last Jedi. Yeah.
Okay, right. I was trying to think of which one. I haven't seen them. I don't think I've seen either one of those since the theaters. So I was trying to think of which storyline was which storyline. I remember one of those feeling really long.
Yeah. Last Jedi is the longest. Attack of the Clones is second longest. And I think Rise of Skywalker is now the third longest. Force Awakens is the fourth longest, so on and so forth.
I like a good long movie.
Oh, me too. Me too. Don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem with the runtime as long as it's warranted and justified. And
let's get this straight, though. Lord of the Rings was pushing it. Those extended editions.
If you got like time where you have nothing else to do, it's all worth it, man. But
it is.
Obviously,
it's just like it's an investment.
Obviously, we obviously need more time too to make all our points here. But let's get moving forward. Papa needs a smoke, so we. Smoking's bad, kids. Don't do it. So we got
Grievous, stripy face guy's terrifying.
Here. Right. So Obi-Wan and Grievous.
He is scary looking. That dude, his teeth were like this, and he had like grooves in his face. I remember the first time I saw him, I was like, I don't like this guy. Yeah. He's scary.
Yeah, I agree. He is a funny looking dude, but I enjoy the interaction.
Right.
Yeah, he kind of looks like something that belonged in like one of those Muppets horror episodes. Like I don't know if you ever saw those when you were a kid, but that's what he belonged in for sure. Grievous is awesome. I kind of went into this earlier, like the lightsaber stuff with Obi-Wan and Grievous. Oh, we can't move on without mentioning the best line in the whole movie. Hello there.
Hello there. Iconic.
It is,
I have
man.
zero issues. I have zero
Yes.
issues with that line. Hello there.
It's so much like I'm not trying to like downplay Alec Guinness's performance in the original trilogy, but it is just so much funnier when Ewan McGregor says it in this one. Like,
It's hilarious.
It's amazing, man. Hello there. So we cannot not mention that. And then then this is when the fight starts up. You know what? My buddy mentioned this to me, and I was like, why haven't they done this yet? And this isn't something that you need necessarily, but it would just be cool as like expansive information, like a comic book run of Grievous, retrieving all those lightsabers that he has. That would be such a cool story to tell somewhere down the line.
That would be cool.
Like to see how he got all the lightsabers. Like, because if you ever read like Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, or I think that's the name of the comic run. That is like seeing how Vader like achieves his lightsaber is so freaking cool. Like it's amazing how he gets that red one. What he does is it's pretty cool. Like he basically I'll explain this real quick. Sidebar, but he basically takes his lightsaber from a Jedi, and he has to take the kyber crystal out of the saber. But basically what he does to make it turn red is, and this is how Sith do it, I never knew this till I read this comic, is what they're basically doing is they're making the kyber crystal bleed, and that's how it turns it red. I think it's a cool concept. But anyway, so the fight is amazing. We got hello there, and fight goes on. I love the spinny thing.
Dude, I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that dude.
No.
And the idea that he could win that fight in the first place is kind of ridiculous, because the dude has 4 arms and he's spinning them like you can't physically get an attack in.
Dude, like no shit. Like when I'm playing Battlefront 2 online and somebody's got Grievous and they're doing that shit, I'm like, oh shit, here I go. Like, I'm getting away.
What was that. There was an older Star Wars game that had Grievous in it.
It was Battlefront 2, the original Battlefront 2, and this one. They both did.
Oh, was it?
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, I remember playing Grievous as a kid and being like, this is impossible.
Talk about this movie for a second, Adam. I'm going to grab exactly what you're talking about, but talk about this movie for a second. I have a cool piece of
Was it
memorabilia.
Memorabilia.
Yeah, just keep talking
about this movie for a second. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Go ahead, on your own.
Aside from Grievous, I was going to say whatever that lizard thing is that Obi-Wan is riding literally sounds amazing. I know I'm the audio guy that nerds out about sound effects and stuff. That thing sounds so cool. That's like one of my favorite creature noises in this series. It's like barking and stuff. And then General Grievous' vehicle sound is ridiculous. And you took your headphones off, so you missed what I just said. But I was just saying that lizard thing, whatever it's called, that Obi-Wan is riding, the sound effect for that thing is redonkulous.
Oh, yeah,
really cool. And General Grievous' vehicle sound is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So, like, 2 of the coolest sound effects in this prequel trilogy.
Oh my god, one of the saddest moments in this movie is when that thing that Obi-Wan is riding just gets shot and goes down, and then the music kicks in. I can't hum it well, but I'm going on.
There you go again, doing your acapella Star Wars cover.
And then he goes down, but he makes that noise. It's sad because he died. That creature. I get sad every time I hear that make that sound when he goes down. But anyway, this is what you were talking about, I believe, was this game right here.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one. I remember, dude, that level was freaking so hard at the time. Yeah. I could not beat Grievous.
Oh no, I replayed this maybe 2 months ago. I put it in for the first time in a long time, and it's still not an easy game to play, but it's amazing though. It's still a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. It's hard, but So where were we? So Anakin was talking to he goes to spy on Palpatine, and this is where Palpatine reveals that he has to learn the dark side and the light, which I in my opinion, Palpatine's not wrong about this. I never felt like Palpatine was wrong in this moment about, maybe the Jedi even themselves probably should have, trained themselves in the way of the dark side a little bit, because maybe it would have given them that edge, to be able to, figure out who the Sith Lord was a lot quicker. So I never felt like Palpatine was wrong here, but I love the moment. This is so cool, actually. I like the rawness of it, because it's just Anakin just ignites his lightsaber, and it's just like, I like how he's just kind of following him around, like, you're the Sith Lord, and his hesitancy to actually make a move on him, because number one of the Jedi way, but I love the interaction too of, are you going to kill me? I would certainly like to, it's a good interaction. Maybe not the best acting by Hayden Christensen here, but the
I would certainly like to. His weird stale personality.
I'm gonna take a nap instead. Is that okay?
Right.
That's a comfy chair you got over there.
I feel like that's how he acts in real life.
Oh, you want to hear my? This is actually, it applies to this movie quite actually. Really fun behind the scenes story. That apparently this is like 100% true. I can't remember who told this, but it's 100% true. That when they were filming the lightsaber scenes, apparently, especially in the ending battle, apparently Hayden Christensen, because the lightsabers don't actually make noise, obviously, when you're using them, right? They're just like sticks, they're like rods, but apparently Hayden Christensen just kept going, vroom, vroom, vroom. And finally George Lucas walked up to him and was like, Hayden, you don't have to do that. I add those effects later on. You don't actually have to make the sounds. They get added later on in post-production. So if you could just do the scenes without making the sounds, that would be appreciated. He apparently just could not stop making the noises as he was swinging the things. And apparently there's a couple parts, and I always look for it, and I think I always forget to look for it, is you can actually see his mouth trying to make the sounds when he's swinging it.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's really funny behind the scenes story, but I don't think it's as funny as the one where George Lucas walked in a toy store, took Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn, and went, "Friends." I don't know what that was about. That's an actual thing that happened, apparently. But anyway, crazy old George.
What a bizarre guy.
I've heard that story from multiple people. I don't know how true that one is, but I know the Hayden Christensen thing is in fact true.
Freaking weirdo.
Friends.
Anyway,
go ahead.
What were we talking about? Friends. So the light, you gotta. Can you imagine
that shop owner's reaction to that? He's so excited to show George Lucas the Star Wars toys he's selling, and then George just takes the two toys and goes, "Friends." That shop owner would have been like, "Get out."
You're banned.
Oh boy. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, George. I don't remember.
You had something serious to say. It sounded important.
Something about the light and the dark side. Have to learn both the light and the dark side. I was gonna say, I feel like generally most Jedi do know about the dark side. They know the abilities of the dark side. So I feel like it's a surprise to Anakin to hear these things, as if he doesn't know about them. So that's my question is, we know that Jedi aren't a stranger to the dark side. They don't use the dark side, but they know what abilities they have.
That's a really good point.
They're schooled on that. So what that means is it sort of seems like they're purposefully keeping that information from Anakin. They don't trust him with it.
Is that true? I mean, I have never thought of that.
Now, this is just assumption because the only indication that we have of him knowing or not knowing about dark side abilities is this conversation with Palpatine. But he's talking about these abilities that dark force users have, and Anakin is listening with close ears, like he is not aware of this, and he's very interested in it. And it sort of does bring up the question, are they keeping this information from him? Are they purposefully not telling him all the abilities of the dark side because they don't trust him, or is it just one of those things that's just coincidence?
I'm gonna tell you why I'm laughing, because I'm just
friends.
No, it's not that. That's not why I was laughing at anymore. But you brought it up again, so maybe I'll start. But no, I'm just picturing like Sam Jackson. When he goes to Sam Jackson, he's pissed off again. It's like Anakin's over there giving him an integral piece of information, and Sam Jackson's still pissed off, you know. And I was starting to think about your theory, and like maybe that's why Sam Jackson's so pissed off, because Anakin keeps barking up the wrong tree. You know, like he's just sitting there trying to, you know, learn these dark side tactics. And like Mace Windu, like I'm just picturing Mace Windu being the guy who was like hiding the fact that he was also being trained in the dark side, you know. So, I don't know, it was just this theory in my head. Like, could you imagine if he was already having private sessions with like Palpatine, like in dark side training, and he's just like, I gotta go over there and take this motherfucker out before anybody finds out. That was the thought process in my mind from your theory, but I'm sorry, go ahead. Sam Jackson was mad because he couldn't say motherfucker enough in this movie.
Oh, you know it. He was holding it. So before Anakin and Mace's exchange, Mace says to, I don't remember what people were around him, but Mace says, I sense a plot to destroy the Jedi. And I thought to myself, that is an oddly specific sense that you have. Because think about the kind of stuff that Jedi sense. I sense a disturbance in the Force. I sense the presence of a Sith. I sense the dark side. I sense great pain. I sense death. And this dude is telling me, I sense that there is a plot to destroy the Jedi. That is really specific. I just thought that was funny.
Mace is so peculiar, man. Him and his purple lightsabers and shit. Like, there's everything about.
I like that purple lightsaber.
I love it. It's amazing. And it's there. The only reason it's there is because Samuel L. Jackson requested it. I don't know if you knew that or not.
He wanted it.
He needed that purple lightsaber. Man.
I think that's great.
It's peculiar.
So then another peculiar thing was the exchange between Anakin and Mace.
Yeah.
Felt so scripted.
Yeah.
And let's be honest here. The two weakest members of these movies in terms of line delivery are Hayden Christensen and Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
So to put them together in one conversation, that whole scene didn't feel genuine. It felt very scripted.
Yeah.
Just wasn't a great scene.
You gotta let Sam Jackson say the F-bomb, man. I'm telling you, it would have been more loose.
Dude, it loosens him up. It's like
yeah,
you know, it's like lubrication in a car. Like, it keeps the parts moving. It keeps him moving and grooving. That's when his acting abilities really seep out of his pores. When he can use all the F-bombs, like, he gets in his zone and magic starts happening. You take that away from him, that's like taking away his powers.
You have two choices here, okay? So like Hayden Christensen goes up to him, right, and he's like, I sense that, it turns out Chancellor Palpatine is the Sith Lord we've been searching for. And I think Mace just says, okay, I'll look into it, you know? I'll look into it. You can either have that.
He said like, are you sure?
Yeah.
He said something like that, and it's like, really, dude?
So what are your options are you sure? Or he could have had, motherfucker, say what? Like, it could have been one of those two things. Which one would you have rather had in that moment?
Well, obviously the second one.
Yeah, I'll take the motherfucker all day. That's the one you need, but... Oh, boy. Anyway, so Anakin...
And then have him march off to kill Palpatine, like, with a freaking attitude.
Yeah, with all the
and
rage.
then he pulls a Pulp Fiction and he starts reading a Bible verse right before he pulls out his lightsaber.
My name is the Lord. I'll smite those who attempt to destroy my brothers.
that would have made that scene complete. Like, for real, just let Samuel L. Jackson be Samuel L. Jackson. It's good for us. It's good for him. You took away all of his abilities to be Samuel L. Jackson, and we get a performance that's just subpar.
Anakin, grab my wallet. Which one is it? The one that says, what is it, bad motherfucker?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Tangent. So, where were we though? Because so he tells Mace, and then Mace goes.
Samuel L. Jackson is probably one of the most fun people to impersonate, right next to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He's got to be. Oh my gosh. Oh man, I'm not gonna make you do it. Never mind. I was gonna have you do a Palpatine line as Arnold because I know your Arnold is pretty top notch, but never mind. No, because
do it.
That would have been the obvious one. I was gonna have you do another one here, but I'll mention the line.
Execute Order 66.
Palpatine or Arnold would not have been a bad Palpatine, not as iconic, but it wouldn't have been bad.
It wouldn't have been very good, but I would have loved it.
Oh, of course, you just would have loved it. So Palpatine goes to confront, Windu goes to confront Palpatine, and out of this, I said Windu, and I thought about the Windex from my. Were you thinking that too? Was it in your mind?
You gotta put Windex on it. You gotta put Windex on it. Yeah, as soon as you said Windu, I thought of Windex too.
Is it ironic that Windu flew out a window? I don't know. That was a bad joke.
To the Windu, to the wall. The Sith done shocked my balls.
Oh, ski motherfucker. Anyway, so.
Oh man, Windu is one of those words that if you say it enough, it just starts sounding ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Windu.
We spent too much time on this Windu thing.
I died. It's worth it.
He's so weird, man. Like, the guy's first name is Mace.
Oh man, Mace.
Wouldn't you stay away from that guy?
My name is Pepper Spray Windex. Yes, Master Windex.
I'm picturing.
And his key line is like, "I'm about to clean up your act." And then
I'm picturing George like, oh, Sam Jackson needs a role. Okay, what do I have around the house here? What can I name this
some
character?
Mace, some Mace, and some Windex.
Oh my rib! Oh boy!
Oh man!
Oh boy!
What do I have laying around the house here?
Oh boy! Oh, I can't even say his name anymore.
It's like, when do we start shooting? He's like, that's it. Windu.
So Anyway,
Oh.
so Mace Windu walks in with Kit Fisto. And Kit Fisto's not any better. Oh my god.
Oh. Hi, my name is Kit Fistu.
Oh boy. Oh.
Oh. My throat hurts.
Gotta love George. You know what one of my favorite Star Wars names are? I had to bring this one up too. The one in Solo. You see him for like 2 seconds in the movie, but the guy. But for some reason they made like a whole trading card. You can get it like that Denny's or whatever, but it was like the character's name was Therm Scissor Punch. You remember the crab looking dude? That was one of my favorites.
Therm. There. What is that show? There's a show. There's somebody named Thurmond.
Is there?
Thurbid. Yeah, and somebody talks like Thurbid. What show is that?
Oh
It's
no!
really
What
funny.
are you talking about?
Thurbid.
What are you talking about?
I don't. That's what I'm trying. I'm asking you. There's a
don't know.
show. There's a character. There's a character named Thurmond, and there's a guy that talks kind of like this, and he says Thurbid.
It might have been the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Pretty likely.
It is likely, or one of the Ewok movies.
All right, so Kit Fistu and Mace Windex
go into. So here's something on a serious note because I just gotta jump to this. So
Kit Fisto and Mace Windu walk into a bar. Continue.
Excuse me. So one of the things I like is the Palpatine spiral move with the lightsaber. I think that's pretty cool. It's treason, then. I can geek out about these scenes like all day, to be honest with you. It's like this really cool sound effect. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Which there's an Easter egg in the official or the theatrical trailer for The Last Jedi. That sound effect is in there. I don't know if you knew that. Just a fun little tidbit. They just threw it in that trailer for some reason. Maybe they knew Palpatine was coming back. Huh? So anyway. Excuse me. My throat's hurting from laughing so much. But they, so basically, Mace Windu goes I can see it's like hard to say, it's hard to talk about. So he goes up to kill him. It's actually pretty epic. I like the little move he does when he breaks the window. I actually think that looks pretty cool on screen. And then Anakin, no, you can't. Oh, by the way, this is the best line. This line cracks me up from Ian McDiarmid because he's playing all bad guy, right? And then he's trying to like play like good guy to Anakin. He's like, Anakin, I knew it would come to this. The Jedi have taken over. I love that line for some reason.
I love his acting switching between just being ruthless and trying to play the victim.
Right.
It's great. I mean, we said it in one of our previous episodes, but he is like a shining spot in this prequel trilogy.
Yeah, once he starts spraying the Force lightning at Mace, and he just like he's backfiring it, and he's sitting there going, oh help me! It really plays really well. I know it sounds like cheesy when I just did it, but like when he does it, it plays really well.
Sounds so much better when you do it.
Oh, thanks.
And we have to address how awful the CGI looks when he's using his lightning and his face is deteriorating. It looks terrible. The CG, and then of course they use real makeup. You disagree?
Yeah.
The transition between him looking like normal Palpatine to him getting old wrinkly face, the CG was awful. It was awful. And then when he gets there, when he has the old wrinkly face, they're using real makeup and it's fine. But while he's shocking him and he's slowly deteriorating, it's just like, it's so ugly. It's like, that's weird. Like use makeup.
Okay. I didn't think it was bad. I gotta be honest. I'll tell you this.
I'm gonna have to urge you to watch it again because it's an eyesore.
No. I actually have a really good explanation as to why I think we had differing opinions on it. Is because in my mind, in the canon, it's basically already been said that the reason his face gets that way is not because of the lightning. The movie could have done a better job explaining that, so I'll say that much. But the reason his face is turning that way is not because of the lightning. So if it was supposed to be one of those things where the lightning was supposed to be electrocuting his face, I would understand that. But the reason his face turns that way is because that is his actual face. He uses the Force to be able to change his face, his appearance in front of other people.
I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm saying is the fact that they used CGI to do it looked terrible.
Okay. I mean, I'll have to rewatch it.
I understand that. I'm saying they should have transitioned by doing several different takes of makeup because they CG'd the transition from face to face and it looked really it didn't look very good. It looked, I don't know, it didn't age very well at all to me.
I'll tell you what is bad here. Because there is an actual really bad effect that I think is just so noticeable is like they're flashing to the lightning from the lightning and then they're flashing onto Anakin. And this is something I noticed watching it recently for the first time, I think. But it's not a very good effect when they're flashing back to Anakin because you're seeing the lightning just kind of flash off his face. And they're clearly using a strobe light to make that work. Like it's so clear like that because like the lightning doesn't flicker off and on like that, you know, like they're just trying to like, so they're so clearly using like a strobe light to make that effect.
George probably thought he was being so clever when he thought of that too. He was probably like, this is going to get us a cinematography Oscar. And there's literally like a DJ with strobe lights. Just...
I've never seen this mechanism before. What do you call this? Strobe light. Sorry, go ahead.
Let's use this contraption. The next thing I had beef with, Palpatine's voice changes. It gets a deep effect on it. They lower his voice. It's just all of a sudden his voice gets morphed. His voice, it turns into this like, it's got this like deep filter on it. And it's bizarre that it transitions. It sounds cool. What I'm saying is what's bizarre is that he speaks in his normal voice, which is just his normal crackly voice. But for some reason, after he changes forms, they specifically chose to put an effect on his voice to where his voice is lowered. And then the moment he puts his hood back up, his voice goes back to normal.
Oh, really?
Why?
I'll pay more attention.
Why?
I think you're right about that, and I'll pay more attention. Yeah.
It's weird. That's awkward. Like, why? His voice doesn't just like his voice isn't different.
Oh, Jesus Christ! He has that whole line right where he's like the power of something like that. You will learn the. It sounds like he has peanut butter at the top of his mouth, like right, like. Is that what you're talking about? Because now it's coming back to me, and you're right.
I don't remember the lines, but they literally put a lowering effect on his voice.
You're right.
It almost sounds doubled and lowered. Yeah. It's a little more menacing. And the fact that his voice even changed to that in the first place was bizarre to me because his voice when he is in Sidious mode versus when he's in Palpatine mode is the same. The only difference is he talks more like this, like he restricts his vocal cords. So why did they choose to lower his voice and put an effect on it only to change it back to normal literally 60 seconds later when he puts his hood back up?
How do you do?
Like,
this is Peter McAllister. The father. That's what it sounds like. It's like it's coming back to me now.
This is Peter McAllister. The father.
With like an extra large bed, a TV. They gave Palpatine they gave Palpatine the talk boy. That's what happened.
I can't. Sidebar. I am a Christmas freak, and I can't wait for Christmas so I can watch Home Alone.
Let's watch them now.
but it'll ruin it for Christmas.
No, you don't like Halloween
Special.
anyway. You don't like horror movies
No,
anyway,
it's
so just watch your
sacred.
Christmas movies now.
It's sacred. I have to wait for Christmas because then I got to watch it with my family. If I watch it now, then I'll have to watch it again later and it'll have less impact.
You can't watch the sequel now?
The Father.
You could do the sequel and then just watch the first one at Christmas time.
But I got to watch them both.
Okay.
Same time.
Watch Home Alone 3.
Simultaneously. Home Alone 3?
Yeah.
Nobody watches Home Alone 3. It's ridiculous. That one was directed by George Lucas, probably.
You know what's funny? I actually think George Lucas had some involvement in that one in some kind of way. Like, I legitimately think that's true. Like, something. Lucas had some kind of credit on that movie. Please Google this, because I really feel like that's true. John Williams did, right? Didn't John Williams do the score for that one, or was it somebody else?
John Williams did the score for Home Alone 1 and 2. I don't know about
I think he did 3 as well.
but-
I think 3 was the last one he did, and then
But I mean, the freaking Home Alone scores are iconic.
Oh yeah, they're amazing. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do.
I don't see any George Lucas involvement with. You got to do an acapella cover, man. It's hilarious. That would be really funny if you just like, we'll get you in a studio and just have you do the entire soundtrack in a microphone. And we'll film you. We'll do a music video. We'll film you sitting by a fire in a really regal chair with a robe on with your legs crossed. And you'll just be singing the entire thing. It'll be like an hour long.
Did you imagine Hayden Christensen doing the score for Home Alone?
Oh, for heavens.
You can't modulate his
I
voice
hate
properly.
sand. It gets everywhere.
Oh, you want to hear something crazy? It was like a couple Star Wars celebrations ago. Like somebody literally asked Hayden Christensen how he felt about sand in an interview. Like at an actual like real Star Wars event, and he was a sport about it. Like I gotta give Hayden some credit because he was a real sport about it. But what else is he gonna do? Be like, hey, how
What
dare
did
you
he
make
say?
fun of that line?
I hope he said it gets everywhere.
He basically did. Like he just kind of retreaded. Oh, he was just like, well, I understand why Anakin hates it. I think he said something like, I personally like sand. I understand why Anakin... I'm sorry, let me do that again.
I don't like sand.
Do you really not?
I live in California. I don't like sand.
Do you really not? Or
It gets everywhere.
is this Adam?
It
being
really
Adam?
does. I'm being
Okay.
100% serious. Anakin was not wrong.
Oh.
It gets everywhere. You go to the beach and you come home, you got to take the whole car ride. You have sand in the stupid. This is a different conversation. Why do men's swim trunks have that net in them?
Oh yeah,
It's terrible. It's not comfortable.
Oh, yeah,
Sand gets all up in there, and then
you
it's
start
in your
chafing.
shoes.
You could chafe from
It's
that,
in your
right?
hair. It's just sand. It's coarse. It gets everywhere. He
That-
was right.
It actually causes chafing, right? Because I think I remember being on the beach as a kid and like I chafed in the area where the sand was, like in the suit.
You're not wrong.
Like I think that's right. Yeah.
It's entirely possible.
Mm.
Probable, even.
Yeah. Speaking of sand, there's sand at the end of this movie. Let's get back into it. So he
Segue, seamless transition.
wonderful segue, right? All right, so I'm trying to work on them. All right, so where were we? So Darth
the terrible
Vader.
voice change.
yeah. From now on, you will be known as Darth Vader. Isn't that how he says it?
I don't know. I don't
Something along the
remember.
lines. I don't know either.
But then let's see. We're at execute order 66. That's coming up, right?
Yep.
Execute Order 66.
Execute. Yes, one of the best lines of the thing. And this is the sad moment I was talking about. Like the score that kicks in when Order 66 is there. Oh, we got to talk about like maybe one of the dopest movies in the movie. I mean, you make fun of CGI Yoda and his gymnastic moves all you want. When he just senses the clones getting ready to attack him, that is so sick. Which, by the way, we never talked about the Wookiees on Kashyyyk, and there's a reason I want to bring this up. Not only because Chewbacca's in there, but because when they're talking about it earlier, in the Jedi Council meeting, they're having that whole conversation, and then the Conehead comes in with, "What's about the droid attack on the Wookiees?" Do you remember that?
Conehead.
You know what I'm talking about?
No, I got distracted, but
Oh, okay.
Megan came home, so I was kind of distracted, so I missed the first part of it.
No. The Jedi Council, they're having this whole conversation, and then the Conehead Jedi guy. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like he just interrupts like everything that's going on in that conversation, just goes, "What about the droid attack on the Wookiees?" Did you ever notice that?
I don't remember it.
You gotta like, I don't know, like there's so many memes of this too, like that people have made, because it's so random. They're talking about one thing, and what's about the droid attack on the Wookiees? He just steers the conversation in new directions. So anyway, Order 66, Chewbacca's there. I love the Chewbacca and Yoda moments. I think that they're pretty cool. Wookiee planet looks pretty cool, pretty tight. So then we're getting into Obi-Wan. Finally, he gets reunited with Bail Organa, who's Princess Leia's father, and Yoda. And I actually really like Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa. Just a quick side note. I don't know, there's something about him. He brings something to that performance that I actually really, really enjoy. By the way, I like the setting of the white ship that they're on as well, because it feels Star Wars. Like, this is the most Star Wars it's ever felt in the prequels, in my opinion, is when they're walking down this white ship. And then what was it? We got Anakin, taking the clone army, leading them into battle, right? And then he goes and slaughters the children.
So that's one of my favorite shots, when Anakin is walking in front of the clone army and they do the overhead shot walking through the shadows, and then they face him and they're coming up. That's one of my favorite shots. It's really cool. And all in all, like, there you go, doing your acapella.
I know, sorry, go ahead. I was listening.
Order 66, like, makes this movie so heavy. Like, as soon as Order 66 happens, like, the movie the tone takes such a heavy turn.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's tragic.
Yeah.
Like, even I've watched it a bazillion times, and even with my lackluster opinions about these movies, as soon as I get to the part of this movie where Order 66 starts happening, it's like, it's kind of emotional. Like, it's upsetting.
Yeah.
Like, it makes you genuinely upset. Like, it's tragic. Like,
yeah,
all of the clones, like, murdering these Jedi, and they can't even defend themselves. Like, all the kids that get killed. Like, I mean, it's freaking tragic.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, it really is. As far as Star Wars goes, it is one of the more emotional things I think you'll ever see, and a lot of it, again, I attribute this to John Williams' score. It really is the score that really just, you feel the emotions. It's serious. There's like, I mean, there really is like no jokes in these moments. Like, there's no that, Star Wars happiness, but there doesn't need to be. Like, this is, it's a pivotal moment in Star Wars history. It's just pivotal. And yeah, I mean, it's important to note that I mean, it's the fall of the Jedi, man. It's the reason that, like, by the time we meet Luke, he is the only, there's not a lot of Jedi in the world, and I think that that's very important to note, because this is something that like when you think about George Lucas's process as a storyteller, like, he had to go into his mind, and this is actually the brilliance of him. One of the more brilliant things he's done is how do I get to the moment? Like why did the Jedi fall? You know what I mean? Like what was it? What was the moment in time? And to come up with like a phrase like Order 66, I don't know what it is about that. It just feels so impactful. Like I don't know. It's just brilliant, man. Like, who comes up with this? I mean, George did, but like, really, like, I don't know another storyteller that's been able to like really think about, you know, a story at I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like how would you come up with this in your head, you know? It's like we just I don't know. I don't know. I can't really describe what I'm trying to describe because like I don't know, the words aren't coming to me, but it's in my head. Like George had a like I wonder if George like knew about Order 66 while writing the originals. You know, that's another question I have too. You know, but
I don't know.
It's pretty incredible.
But
what
it's
he does.
heavy.
It's heavy, man. It really
heavy,
is.
and that's why I wish that this whole movie just had a darker tone,
Mhm.
even darker.
Mhm.
I wish the whole trilogy was dark. That's why we had that conversation the previous episode where I talked about how if I were directing these movies, I would cast Anakin as a complete psychotic. I would make it really dark. I would pick a cinematographer who is proven to convey dark emotion in a scene. I would make it rated R. Like I would make the build up to this moment huge. And we get a little bit of darkness when Order 66 happens, which is why it's a favorite moment of these movies, is because it feels very raw, it feels very emotional, it feels intense.
Yeah.
If they could have even kicked it up a notch and made the entire trilogy kind of in line with that, and then made Order 66 even darker,
Yeah.
like it would have been super cool. But I mean, even as it is, I mean, the implication of it is huge.
Yeah, and like this is like something I wanted to bring this up too. I'm kind of glad you talked about it like that because to me it made me realize, or a point that I want to make from the business side of things, is it does seem like, and I'm not saying that they haven't gone to dark areas, but like it seems like there's just such a hesitancy to make an entirely dark Star Wars movie. And I don't mean like every little moment has to be dark, but I mean like a dark gritty Star Wars movie, like with the I mean, except for what, Rogue One, which I don't understand why there's such a hesitancy for it, because like Rogue One made $1 billion on its own. So just something I wanted to mention on the business side of things. Like I don't know why, and even like George seemed so hesitant to just make like a really gritty sort of Star Wars movie all the way through it. But you know, I don't know, because like, you're not wrong.
Seem
I mean,
to be marketing towards children.
yeah.
Like honestly, like and not directly towards children, but specifically with the prequels, they seemed to want to make them very family friendly, and because of that, the adults kind of feel like we lost out on some good cinema.
Yeah, George, it's like, George, you can't make children's movies. You're too fucked up to make children's movies, man. Like the things that are going through your head, these should not be children's movies. Gotta respect them for trying, but
I will catch heat for this, but I have said for a while, I still stand by it. It doesn't have to be now, but at some point, I want to see a full Star Wars reboot, a full remake, top to bottom, even the originals. I want to see it happen because I want to see what Star Wars does. Quit shaking your head. I want to see what Star Wars looks like with modern technology and with a darker spin, with a director who wants to take it a darker, more dramatic direction, who wants to explore the darker corners. Because, and that's not to say that I don't love Star Wars the way it is, because I do. I freaking love Star Wars. It's a big part of my cinema history, a big part of my life, and the original trilogy, it will always be the original trilogy. I mean, it's fantastic.
right.
But I feel like when you start talking about remaking stuff, people get so offended. It's like you just told them that you were going to murder their mother or something, and it's like, I'm just talking about a movie. Like, it's all creative. If you don't like it, don't watch it. But I would like to see it, to see what it would look like, because the technology when it came out, I mean, it was groundbreaking at the time. and we love it for that reason. But I would love to see what would happen if you used that story and did it with modern technology with a modern twist, just to see what direction it takes and see if a new generation of young kids could latch onto it the same way that the original generation latched onto the originals.
Right. And no, I wasn't shaking my head at your opinion, because I do think it's gonna happen. That's the thing. I've accepted that one day it will happen. I don't know that we'll necessarily live to see that
We're
day.
gonna be dead.
Yeah, but like I know it's obviously gonna happen one day where they do wipe the slate, and then they try to make these again with the newer technology, and it's gonna happen. We probably won't live to see it, but I wasn't shaking my head at your opinion. I was shaking my head because I'm like, man, if they did that like right now, like people would be so pissed. That's why I was shaking my head. Like
there would be death threats.
Right. Like we need to get the world right before we can touch Star Wars. Like there's just so many human issues that we need to tackle in the way.
I don't know that the
minds
world
work.
will ever be prepared to remake the original Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah, like man, you thought putting Donald Trump in office was bad. Remake Star Wars? It's gonna go to hell, man. I mean,
I don't understand the anger behind it. Like, I don't understand why people get so offended when you talk about remaking Star Wars. Like I said, if you don't like it, then you can reject it. That doesn't have to be your Star Wars. I very well may still like the originals, but I want to see it because it's old enough and it's iconic enough to where I would love to see a modern, like, intense interpretation of it, because even as iconic as the original trilogy is, there was a barrier of the time that it came out. The technology was very new. It was groundbreaking. And that's exactly why we love it. But the technology it's old at this point. And the technology that we have today is mind-blowing compared to what it used to be.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, let's be honest, nobody watches the original Star Wars trilogy because they want Oscar-worthy acting. That's
maybe not acting, no.
And not to say that it's as bad as the prequels, because it isn't. It's fine. But nobody is watching the original trilogy and thinking, wow, all these people deserve Oscars for their quality acting.
Right.
Like especially Luke. I mean, his character has some moments that you're like, why? but we hold it dear to us because it's the original, because it was groundbreaking, because we have this standard. It's a big part of people's lives. But there are things about it that I would love to see modernized, interpreted in a new way, in a darker way, with new technology, with actors that have a lot of depth. I want to see, because I feel like Star Wars isn't taken seriously in terms of like getting Oscars and stuff. They don't take Star Wars seriously. Like it's looked at like all big blockbuster movies aren't looked at as being creative or being artistic masterpieces.
But
They're
Mandalorian's changed that conversation quite a bit,
right,
with the words. But go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
But Star Wars in itself, in its original form, with the original trilogy, with the prequels, and even with the new ones, they got nominated for things, but it wasn't, acting and Best Picture and stuff like that. As a whole, Star Wars is looked at, kind of like a movie like Fast and Furious is. It's like they're just these big action fantasy blockbusters that they think are just made to put butts in the seats at theaters. They're just used as cash cows. And people don't look at them as cinema masterpieces. At the time, the original trilogy was, because it was very groundbreaking. But how they're looked at today isn't that way. It's looked at as kind of like a nerdy novelty. And I hate that, because it is a really creative and a really artistic world.
Oh,
and
I agree with you there. Yeah.
With the prequel trilogies, they really did not hit the mark with creativity and artistry. And they really missed the mark, and they did not do the originals justice. And I especially want to see the prequels redone, and I wish they were redone now.
Yeah.
I would love to see that happen, but
Yeah.
I just want so badly for somebody to have the balls to remake it and attempt to give
Yeah.
it the glory that it deserves in terms of people looking at the franchise like this
Yeah.
is art, this is big, this doesn't just
Yeah.
have to be some ridiculous CGI fantasy just to get people to buy tickets. Like, it can be an artistic masterpiece. We can rave about the acting and the storytelling
Yeah.
and the writing, like, and the cinematography. Like, it can be really grand. I want somebody to take it out of being a nerdy novelty and into
Right.
being a creative masterpiece like it deserves to be.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and this is how this is where I'm going to differ a little bit, because I think that and this is just my opinion, and I respect that that's your opinion on it, and that's fine. And curiosity would get the better of me if they did have the balls to remake it. Obviously, I would go see it and be curious, about how they did. If they didn't do a good job, then whatever. I still have the originals, right? So that's fine.
We would all go see it.
Of
People
course.
wouldn't admit it, but we
Right.
would all go see it.
Exactly. But the thing is like, if Disney didn't buy Star Wars, then I would probably be a lot more on board with this, because the only difference now is that Disney bought Star Wars and they made everything that came out from 2015, so on, so forth, canon with the movies. You know what I mean? So everything, all the books, all the novels that's come out from 2015, so on, so forth, is all now canon in the movies, with these interpretations of the movies. So for right now, as long as Disney has it for at least the next however many years, everything's canonical with the films, meaning that, we as nerds, maybe not you personally, and I understand why you feel this way, but we as nerds have invested a lot of time into a lot.
Perfectly fine with that title.
Yeah. Well, no. I'm not saying you're not a nerd. I'm saying that I'm saying maybe you haven't invested the time like somebody like me has into all the novels, all the animated series, and all that, which are all canonical with the movies. We have, like, maybe you personally have not invested that time, but a lot of us have. So I think right now, when we just so freshly invested that time into the expansive, story and all that kind of stuff, it would just be tough for, Disney to go, oh, sorry, we just released all that canon novel that you're probably still catching up on some of those novels, but fuck it, because we're going to remake it. I just think right now it's too fresh. 30 years down the line, maybe. We'll see where we're at. You know what I mean?
I don't expect them to do it anytime soon.
Especially
I'm just saying,
yeah,
I would like to see it.
And even if, and like me too, especially with the prequels, like I would definitely want it with the prequels more than any of them. But like, if you did it with the prequels now, even imagine it. It's like, okay, we're going to remake the prequels with Ewan McGregor not playing Obi-Wan, but here he is in this Obi-Wan series that we just put out. You know what I mean? It's like, so if Disney didn't buy it and make all these plans and do all this stuff, which I think is actually really important to the legacy of Star Wars personally, then I would be with you. You know what I mean? But like, for right now, it's just like there's so much that's so fresh. You know what I mean? I know you don't expect it, but I could see why people would be upset right now. Yeah.
And I would never, ever expect them to do anything like that right now.
Yeah.
It just won't happen. It won't happen for a very long time.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, at some point, it's always been a feeling of mine that I am open to them completely rebooting it, to them completely redoing it. I'm completely open to it. Whenever they decide to do it, if it's 20 years, 30 years down the line, I'm open to it. I would like to see it, because I would like to see a different interpretation of it, especially to ensure its legacy with future generations. Because there are going to be future generations that especially dismiss the prequel trilogy, because let's be honest, they're not that great. They weren't executed that well. So like 20 years down the line, is a 15-year-old kid going to watch the prequels for the first time and think, this is amazing? No, probably not, because the technology is going to be balls to the walls by then. He's going to be like, what the heck is this? Look at these effects. Like, wow. They're going to pick it apart. Yeah. So I especially would just like to see a new interpretation, so that future generations can almost like, it's almost like renewing your license. Like, Star Wars will get old to the point that future generations will start to become less attached to it, and our generations will die off.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be less, it'll always be popular probably, but it won't be like it used to be. And I would just like to see it, make sure that it gets instilled in generations 50 years down the line to care about Star Wars. Whether that's just continuing the story or remaking all of them just to remind everybody how great they are. But
and your intentions, I mean, your heart's in the right place on that too. I mean, it is so the legacy can live, and that's all I want too. And I'm sure we'll get into that conversation about passing it on to a new generation once we hit the Last Jedi review. Let's go ahead and just start to wrap this up. Let's get into the final moments of the film. So we have so Padme and sorry, not Padme. Yeah, Padme. Obi-Wan comes and tells Padme what he just seen, which is actually very emotional. And there's a whole Clone Wars thing I wanted to get into here, but I feel like we're already so over time. I'm gonna save it for later. But and I can, because it'll come back up in another movie. But anyway, so Obi-Wan tells Padme what he'd seen, and I actually think him and Natalie Portman play this scene really well. Little fun, little behind the scenes, quick little tidbit. The reason that Ewan McGregor's hand is over his mouth when he says he was seen killing younglings is because he actually could not take the word youngling seriously, so he actually had to stop himself from laughing. That's actually the truth. So if you next time you watch it, he's covering his mouth so he doesn't laugh. So just
that would be like you if they cast you in the movie and you had to say Mace Windu.
Exactly, same thing. Oh, if I had to say a lot of George Lucas's lines, man, it wouldn't just be Younglings or Mace Windu. There'd be a lot of things. But anyway, so yeah, fun little tidbit for you. But so the final fight. So Padme goes and takes off to find out, or to see Anakin on Mustafar, and Obi-Wan hops in the ship and follows her, and which was probably a dick move in retrospect, but he had a mission and he was following it, and like I said, abandon all attachment is the Jedi way. Anyway, so she lands the ship, she goes over to Anakin. How do you feel about the scene where with the interaction with her and Anakin here at first?
I don't mind it. Of course, Hayden Christensen can always do better. But I will say the direction where they're taking the character, Anakin's completely delusional.
Yeah.
He is completely delusional. He's gone like off the deep end conspiracy theory. Like he really seriously thinks that he is in the right and he is doing this for a good reason, and he thinks that he is going to have the power and he can rule the universe, and he just gets this crazy delusional power trip, and he doesn't see anything wrong with it. And I love that part of his character.
Of course.
I think that direction is fantastic. That's immediately what I thought during that scene was, wow, he is so delusional right now.
Yeah, definitely the best aspect of these final moments is just he's so far gone. He lost it. He lost the motivation, which is amazing because it's all tying back into what I was saying earlier, right? The point of the sequel trilogy was to redeem that from him a little bit more, So, but anyway, but yeah, he's lost. He's definitely lost the path of what he forgot the reason almost of why he was doing what he did in a way, and yeah, so he's just too far gone. Then I like when Obi-Wan gets out of the ship. I actually like his line delivery when he's like, liar, like I thought that was actually pretty good. And then he's choking her out, and I like the visual of it. I mean, I think it all looks pretty good. Obi-Wan says, the one line that sounds very immature from Anakin, but we understand he's too far gone here, so it's not a big deal. Is, you will not take her from me. I thought that line was a little bit childish and immature, but anyway, so we get to the final fight. I don't like the dialogue of "you will try" or whatever he says.
Yeah, that was poor.
And the other one that was really,
you will try.
it was really poor, and I feel bad because it was delivered by Ewan McGregor, and it's the one time Ewan McGregor I thought delivered a super poor line is when he goes, "Your new empire." It just didn't fit the scene.
Your new empire.
It didn't fit the scene the way it was supposed to.
I didn't mind it that much because that's kind of how I felt about it, honestly. Because like I said, Anakin is so delusional at this point.
Yeah.
So I guess my mind was kind of in the same place. If I'm Obi-Wan, I'm probably thinking that, like, your new empire, like where is your head?
Yeah,
dude?
but say it like you just said
so
it.
Delusional.
Your new empire instead of your new empire. It was the
I mean, I feel like it's very similar. He's
small
just
nitpick.
an English guy.
Yeah, small nitpick. It just didn't fit the tone, I don't think. But anyway, so the fight starts up, and okay, so I said I had problems with this fight toward the beginning of this.
Yeah,
so
what are your problems?
Editing and CGI. The lava doesn't hold up, I don't think, in the background, which they use as a set piece for a lot of this. Like, my favorite moments are when they're in the actually indoors fighting in these moments. Like, I don't like when they actually hop on their little rafts or whatever, and they're like
the indoors moments when they're doing that really super fast choreography, when they're going.
Oh, it's amazing! It's amazing.
It's way badass.
Yeah, that's like the best part of the fight to me because it doesn't have that
best
lava
part
that's
of the trilogy.
Distracting. Yeah, definitely. And then I love it. They do the quick swing and then they with the forces. I think that's amazing, cool. Dude. I also like the part where Obi-Wan goes down and or what was it like when he has Anakin down on the ground, you know what I'm talking about, and they both have to get their sabers with the Force. You know what I'm talking about, so like that part was really cool. And then I mean, like, for the most part, this fight is awesome. My problem is there's a couple really poor edits, I think, in this. Even from transitioning from don't get me wrong, I love that they laced in the Yoda Palpatine fight with this. Like, I think it's really cool. It just makes it feel more epic that way, that we have two fights going on at one time. I think that was a great decision. I just think that sometimes the transitions from one to the other just feel offbeat, and that's kind of where my problems lie mostly. It's just the editing.
I'm never going to disagree with you on poor transitions because these movies are riddled with them. Yeah. There is absolutely no concept of a good transition in these movies.
Yeah, in this fight especially. But however, when we're talking about lightsaber moments, this still ranks in the top 5, I think, because it's still impactful. It's still what's going on with these characters.
Very, very impactful. Anything it lacks in choreography or oomph or whatever, which it definitely has.
Yeah.
But if you do think that it lacks in that department, where it makes up is that this fight has meaning, like has deep meaning. It's very impactful. It's very emotional. It is one of the more emotional moments of the entire franchise because of the implication of this fight. I mean, it's massive. And I will say the CGI thing, I'm never going to disagree with you on CGI issues. I simply, I wasn't really looking at it, I guess, because I like the scene so much for the fighting that I guess I was just kind of like not paying attention at that point. But I mean, obviously the CGI execution in this entire movie is still pretty bad.
And it wasn't a distraction to me until they hopped on those raft things. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm talking about? The raft things that are on the lava. Like,
right. And the reason why I probably didn't notice was because they have actual dialogue there
that's true.
I was actually interested in. I like the dialogue when they're on the rafts. Yeah. So I guess I was less paying attention to the environment, and I was kind of, I don't know, this is one of those moments where all of the right things fall into place enough to where the end of this movie grabs your attention really impressively.
Yeah.
For all the mistakes they made in these movies, this movie at the tail end of it grabs your attention, and you're very emotionally involved.
I agree, man.
You're very invested.
Yeah.
And they did it to the point where it's kind of, at least when I watched it this time, for the first time, even though I've been nitpicking all of these movies for this, for the first time, I was so invested in what was happening that I actually stopped caring about the surroundings.
Yeah. Oh, and 100%.
So I'm not going to say they weren't bad.
No, 100%.
I was just distracted. They duped me.
No, 100%, man. Like it is that good of a everything that's going on. It, like I said, it still makes it one of the top 5 lightsaber moments because of everything that's going on here, and it's a lot, and it's good stuff, and it does fall into place very, very well. And it does this movie a lot of favors. I'm just saying I had more problems with this fight in terms of from a technical point of view, I guess, than some of the others. But as a fight itself and as a lightsaber moment, it's still one of the best. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, you do feel the impact of it. Anakin, you know, everybody makes fun of the high ground. I kind of understand what's going on, but you know, there's something funny about that line.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. You know, I see why people make fun of it, but I like it personally. Like, I think it works. I have the high ground, you know. And then
he was right, though.
He was
right. So that's why I don't have an issue with it. Not only because it's iconic and it's a hilarious meme, but I mean, he was right. He had the high ground. There was only one place for Anakin to go, and that was up and towards him, and you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I like it shows that Obi-Wan still cares a little bit because he even says, "Don't try it." You know what I mean? He doesn't want to kill Anakin. He just wants to tame him. You know what I mean? Like, you know, tranquilize him, I guess would be a better way to put it. But you know, he does. He ends up destroying him, and not really. I mean, obviously Palpatine comes and rescues him, and the line by Hayden Christensen, the "I hate you," might be the best acting that Hayden Christensen did, and the moments played here between like, it was one thing clearly George wanted to make sure that between actors this part worked, you know, and you know, Obi-Wan, you know, "You were my brother, Anakin, I loved you," you know, it's actually, you can hear the emotion in the voice, man. Like, these actors, like, they had to play this right for this to work. Palpatine comes and gets a burnt up Obi-Wan. Going back just real quick here, did you love when Yoda like went in with the 2 guards and just like he had no more fucks left to give, man? Just whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Palpatine comes and rescues Anakin, puts him in the oxygen suit, and we see oh my gosh, I'm sorry, but the rise of Vader is amazing. But then it gets ruined by no. Like, that line.
It totally does.
No. It's like, come on, George, we were doing so well, man. You finally got us. And
I feel like George does that a lot. You're like, okay, George, this is good, George. This is good. Come on. Otherwise, fairly good moment, but
oh yeah, then you have this is why Padme died. She's lost the will to live. I don't know if I like that at all. Like, what?
She essentially dies of a broken heart.
Yeah, I get the meaning behind it, but huh?
It is kind of bizarre that there's absolutely no medical reason that they could come up with.
Yeah.
You couldn't come up with something?
I don't know. Yeah. Oh, whatever. Anyway, so you go. So, you know, obviously my favorite, I think my actual favorite moment of this entire movie, and it, you know, whatever, blame it on fan service, nostalgia, whatever it is, but my actual favorite moment of this entire movie is Obi-Wan Kenobi delivering Luke Skywalker to Tatooine. Real quick, speaking of Obi-Wan, let me just back up a tad. just a smidge, because the Yoda telling Obi-Wan, training I have for you, an old friend, you know? Doesn't this feel so cliffhangery? And doesn't it feel so perfect that we're getting an Obi-Wan series finally? Like, I think it's going to pull a lot from that moment where Yoda says that to him, you know?
It has to.
Yeah. I think it means something there. And I think that there was always, I don't know. To me, it's like it was just so perfectly laid out to do more with Obi-Wan. And I wanted to
There
mention
had
that
to
for
be
that
some
reason.
sort of intention, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it does. It feels like we got more story here, don't we, George? There's more story. I won't be surprised if we find out that George actually did come up with the Obi-Wan idea, you know, and you know, maybe that was something that Lucasfilm actually kept.
Let's
after
hope he
it was
doesn't direct
popular.
it.
No, but if he came up with like the concept, that wouldn't surprise me. You know what I mean? And dude, like this is actually like really confirmed. Like, there's people out, like this is pretty much confirmed, that the original script for the Obi-Wan, like the one that Disney had, because they were gonna do a movie, but now they decided to make it into a series to expand it better. The original script, I don't know if they're gonna still use this concept. It did have Vader in it. Like it was supposed to be like Obi-Wan and Vader had another fight in between this one and the New Hope one. So that'd be pretty cool if they actually go with that for the series, but we'll see, man. But anyway, so my
Wouldn't
favorite,
upset me.
yeah, my favorite moment of the ending is definitely Obi-Wan delivering Luke to Tatooine, and blame it on fan service, nostalgia, whatever, like I said, but that is my favorite moment of the movie. And then we wrap. Adam, what'd you think of the ending? How do you feel about it?
My favorite moment of this movie, and I know there are several moments in this trilogy, despite you know what they are and what I've said about them. There have been several moments where I said were some of my favorites in the trilogy, but my favorites, my indisputable favorite moment of this trilogy, is when Obi-Wan chops Anakin's arms and legs off, and you know yells, "You were the chosen one."
It's great,
Like,
man. It's a great moment
it's
too.
hands down
Yeah.
my favorite part of the entire trilogy of the prequels. It holds so much emotion.
It does.
So much emotion. And it's so tragic. Like when, like we were talking about, when he says like, don't try it, like he's literally, he doesn't want to kill him. He doesn't want to. He wants to save him. He cares about him.
Yeah.
And he does it anyway, and he knows that he has to, and he does it. And in that moment, he's, you know, talking to him like, you were the chosen one. Like, this wasn't supposed to happen. Like, how did this happen? And then you see him look up with that fire in his eyes that's super badass. I hate you. And it's just, even watching it today blows my socks off. I wouldn't change a single thing about that last moment.
It's a great moment.
Best acting in the whole trilogy, arguably one of the best acting moments in Star Wars, actually.
Yeah. I mean, even like the fire, when he catches on fire, like even that doesn't look bad. Even as bad as the CGI has been throughout this trilogy, like him catching on fire does not look bad. It's like, did they actually light this fucker on fire? Like it looks good compared to everything else. And like, yeah, I mean, it's an amazing moment, man, and that's a good moment to pick. Well, Adam, go ahead.
One of my one of the parts that I really like, another one of my favorite lines from this movie, is when Palpatine is addressing the Senate and he says he's going to start the first galactic empire.
Oh, we missed that.
And Padme looks over and says, "So this is how liberty dies," with thunderous applause.
Right. Yeah.
Such a good line.
That is an amazing line.
Such a good line.
Yeah, George like pulled that out of his ass. Either that or Natalie Portman just decided to improv that. I don't know, because it's one of the best lines in the entire movie for sure, or in the entire prequel trilogy. It's so true, man. It is a great line. Dude, incredible stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is a long discussion, but there's also so much to unpack with this movie.
And we went on a lot of tangents.
We sure did. But I thank you for joining me on it, and I hope that people watch it till the end. And if you stuck with us till the end, thank you, viewers. I think this is the most fun to talk about. It's so much more fun when you're enjoying yourself, isn't it? I mean,
I know, because like, the first two have their moments, but overall, there's so much wrong with them that it just kind of feels like a homework assignment to unpack them. This one, it starts becoming more of a passion project. It starts getting fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm excited to talk about the originals. I'm probably even more excited to talk about the new
sequels.
ones, because I haven't watched at least 8 and 9. I don't think I've watched since the theater, so I'm really excited to watch them again and talk about it after watching all of these over again. So I'm probably the most excited to unpack those again.
Well, you know why those are to me the most exciting is because I don't have a lot of friends left that enjoy the sequels. So like to actually talk to somebody who can have a civil discussion about them, I'm excited to get around to those. Like
I can't not like them.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
I respect writers too much for their storytelling. You know, like I said earlier, I watch them for what they are. The story is written, just like I can't change what I like about my life or your life. I can't change Star Wars. This is the hand I was dealt, and it was executed with finesse. I mean, we'll get there, but best sounding and best looking Star Wars movies, the effects, just I'm excited to talk about them, because that's what I'm talking about with remaking Star Wars movies, to get that new modern technology to give you that excitement. Like, I can't believe I just watched a Star Wars movie and I'm raving about the cinematography. Like, that's exciting.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. And it's it was like you were saying earlier, like movies like Revenge of the Sith, this is the reason I wanted to have these discussions, because these are the Star Wars films that we love, and this is where the discussions start to get passionate. You stuck with us viewers through the first two movies, hopefully, but
God bless you.
Now we're going to unpack a lot more with these original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, and maybe a couple of the spin-offs. We'll see what we do there. I know Adam definitely wants to talk about Rogue One, but we'll do Rogue One afterward. But anyway, guys, Adam, thank you for joining. We do got to wrap up. We've been going for maybe 4 or 5 hours at this point. I haven't kept track. It's been a long time.
It's 9 o'clock. It's probably been 3 hours at least.
Yeah. Anyway, so thank you guys for joining. This has been Dom's Corner. Adam, where can people find you and everything you're doing with the Red Eclectic?
Yeah, at the Red Eclectic on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I've been cranking out some more videos lately because I'm in that home stretch where I'm preparing to start filming podcasts and YouTube stuff. So I've been kind of experimenting with more Instagram videos lately. So I encourage you to check them out.
Yeah, and my social media information will be in the description below, along with Adam. So be sure to, and seriously, those videos he's been making, they're fire. So make sure you guys check them out.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. They've been amazing, and thank you guys for joining, and continue to support what Adam does and what I do. Hopefully, but more importantly, just support Adam, because he's what he's doing is so essential to everyday life. So make sure you go and support.
Well, I think Star Wars is essential to everyday life.
Well, so. I appreciate that, sir. God bless you. So we do got to wrap up finally here, but thank you guys for joining. I've been Don Martino. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends. If you know anybody that likes Star Wars, especially with these long, in-depth Star Wars conversations, make sure you show them. I've been Don Martino. This has been Dom's Corner, and I will see you guys on Wednesday. Thank you very much.